I, Hermione, travel through time to Marvel to be the savior. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426. Loki was clearly arranged. Boom. The hot beam condensed on the face of the destroyer again, and the powerful attack force instantly attacked Thor again. Tragedy happened again. Thor was once again turned into a pile of scum. This level is too difficult. Miss Hermione Granger began to feel a little numb, just like a bug in the game. No matter what you do, the ending is the same. What can I do? Just now, I blew all the bullshit. Say you are the savior. Let Thor face you head on. Don't be afraid. But now, Thor was beaten into a pile of scum again, which obviously means that he is giving away his head. Miss Hermione, should she report it and persuade her teammates not to give it away? Loki sat on the throne of Asgard. At this moment, he was in a very happy mood. He was not as stupid as the Loki in the movie, who let the destroyer punch Thor away. As a big villain, he must kill the protagonist with one blow. It turned out that Loki's mentality had changed subtly, which made Loki more ruthless than in the original movie. To put it bluntly, it was caused by Miss Hermione, because she chose to save Heimdall in front of Loki on the Rainbow Bridge. All seemingly incomprehensible behaviors are actually traceable. What kind of fruit will be produced later if the cause is planted in the front? The most intuitive manifestation is learning. If you don't study hard, your academic performance will naturally be poor. Studying hard may not necessarily become a top student, but at least you can pass the exam. Unless Miss Hermione Granger goes back to the past and chooses not to save Heimdall on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge, then Loki here may not be stimulated and ruthless. Of course, this is impossible. Although Goddess Hermione has never stopped studying time magic, the progress is slow. Being able to go back to the past for more than 10 hours is already the limit. When Heimdall was saved, it was too far away from the present time and could not go back at all. Now we can only use the bug to temporarily reverse time and let Thor be blasted into slag by the destroyer again and again. Loki has never been so happy to become the new queen. He even wants to have a sip of red wine. It turns out that Thor's life is really a worry for him. Only when Thor is completely dead can Loki, the throne of Asgard, rest assured. No wonder in history, many princes fought for each other, and it was either you or I. Only when the enemy is completely dead can you sit on the throne with peace of mind. But Loki also felt a little strange. I don't know why, but the joy he felt after the destroyer killed Thor seemed familiar. Just 1 minute ago, he seemed to be so happy, but Thor only died once. Why would Loki be happy twice? Because Loki was clearly arranged, he could be happy a third time. Because Hermione Granger turned the time converter again. This time she secretly placed Thor's hammer within 10 meters of Thor. Such a close distance is much closer than in the original movie. If Thor still can't do it, that can only mean that this man can't do it. It's definitely not the problem of Thor's hammer. Boom, the terrifying fiery beam attacked again. Without a doubt, Thor was reduced to slag for the third time. Loki in Asgard was just happy, and the strange feeling of déjà vu arose again. No. There must be something wrong? This feeling is wrong. Miss Hermione Granger turned the time converter again. Anyway, it was Thor who was blasted into slag again and again, not her. At most, Thor would die a few more times as the savior of Marvel. Goddess Hermione Granger still didn't believe that she would not be able to pass this level. The fourth experiment began, and this time Hermione changed her strategy. When the destroyer opened the hole on his face again and began to shoot terrifying fiery beams, Hermione directly used magic to move the position where Thor was standing. Since the destroyer controlled by Loki did not play by the rules, then Hermione controlled Thor to jump left and right to avoid immortality. Boom. The terrifying blazing beam melted the car next to Thor. Fortunately, he was controlled by Hermione's magic and avoided the fatal blow in time. Thor did not have the same treatment as Iron Man Tony. Iron Man traveled back with Goddess Hermione at that time, At that time, Iron Man was turned into a spider by Hermione. Iron Man was very surprised to see his past self, so he had no doubt about the identity of Goddess Hermione. Thor did not travel back, but was blasted into slag again and again. This time, Goddess Hermione changed her strategy and did not die. Thor was still in shock. If it weren't for an unknown force that shifted his body just now, he might have died with the Destroyer's attack just now. Thor didn't know that he had actually died 3 times. Every time he was blasted into slag on the ground. The Savior is really powerful. She was able to predict the Destroyer's attack, so that she could avoid it in time. After knowing that he survived, Thor became more courageous. Loki, did you miss? Thor was bold enough to mock. Loki, sitting on the throne of Asgard, slammed the table in anger. Impossible. He should have died just now. How could he have managed to dodge it? What's going on? Why do I think Thor should have died? Loki felt his brain begin to go haywire. Furious, he ordered the Destroyer to fire at full power. A terrifying scene that had not appeared in a movie appeared here. The Destroyer used his ultimate move, and his entire body began to turn red, like red-hot metal. The scorching temperature directly raised the surrounding air by many degrees, making people feel hot and unbearable. Boom, boom, boom. If it was a single shot just now, then the Destroyer would be firing continuously now. One after another, terrifying hot beams of light continued to attack Thor, and each shot could blast Thor into slag. But Thor had the Savior Hermione behind him. Since she changed her strategy, she would naturally not let Thor continue to die under the hot beams. Thor's burly body was controlled by Hermione, jumping back and forth, perfectly dodging every attack of the Destroyer. What is the truth that the only way to defeat martial arts is to be fast? This is impossible. Loki angrily broke the throne stone. Thor had obviously lost his divine power. Even if he hadn't lost his divine power, he couldn't be so flexible. Who is helping him? Odin? But King Odin was still sleeping. Who is it? Loki immediately thought of the last time on the Rainbow Bridge, when he was about to kill the frozen old god Heimdall. A similar situation occurred at that time. Is it that invisible person who attacked again? Why does she go against me again and again? Loki was extremely angry. He frantically ordered the Destroyer to kill Thor at all costs. The terrifying hot beams began to burst out from around the Destroyer's body. Many holes appeared on the Destroyer's body. It was an attack that left no blind spots. This time, even if Thor successfully escaped again, the innocent people around him, as well as Thor's soldiers, including Jane Foster, the woman Thor knew in the human world, would die. The most critical moment. Finally, Hermione Granger didn't have to take action again. In order to protect his companions and his woman, Thor finally exploded the small universe in his body. Thor's hammer, which was less than 10 meters away from him, immediately received the induction and attached itself to Thor's hammer. The spell left by Odin was finally automatically opened. This time, Odin's spell finally recognized that Thor had grown into a true hero. Boom boom, flying sand and rocks, dark clouds covering the sky, and terrifying lightning began to gather. Thor's hammer automatically flew to Thor's hand. The feeling of an old friend returning made Thor feel moved to tears. Let's fight together. This time it's not for myself, but to protect my companions and innocent ordinary people. Thor's hammer seemed to have heard Thor's appeal and burst out with terrifying power. In an instant, Thor raised Thor's hammer and smashed it directly on the Destroyer. Boom! The terrifying power suddenly knocked the huge Destroyer hundreds of meters away from the area of the human town. Along the way, sand and rocks flew everywhere, and terrifying gullies were dug out on the ground. The ordinary people around, as well as the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who arrived late, were all stunned. Is this the power of God? Chapter 427. Thor is also going to use his ultimate move. The armor on Thor's body also covered his whole body the moment he held Thor's hammer. At this moment, he returned to the peak. For Marvel superheroes, it is quite difficult for them to reach a higher level. The ceiling of Iron Man, the ceiling of the Hulk, and the ceiling of Thor are all clearly visible. Unlike the Savior Miss Hermione Granger, They can continuously improve their strength with the help of system plugins. It is already a very remarkable thing for Thor to return to the peak. He was excited. The destroyer was knocked out, but it did not stop. After all, the destroyer is a machine, without emotions, and can't feel pain. It continues to shoot hot beams at Thor, but they are all blocked by Thor holding Thor's hammer. At this time, Thor is also going to start to use his big moves. In the art of ancient and modern times, everyone is more obsessed with the attack method of falling from the sky. Thor quickly rotated Thor's hammer in his hand. The hammer was heavy, but it turned into a small fan in Thor's hand. The small fan spun rapidly, and finally took Thor to the sky. This small fan made of Thor's hammer was not ordinary. It directly condensed a thunderous tornado made of dark clouds on the spot. From a distance, the terrifying dark clouds, thunder and lightning connected the ground and the sky, which was extremely shocking. It is worthy of the power of God. And from a close distance, it was even more amazing. The terrifying pressure and the centrifugal force brought by the tornado directly sucked the destroyer into the air. Thor, the god of thunder, was in the higher sky, with lightning all over his body. The powerful pressure made him the master of this world. Miss Hermione Granger thought that she had nothing to do. At most, when the destroyer was smashed into slag, she would clean up the battlefield and take a few pieces to do research later. There is no end to studying this subject. Just like literary creation, you should accumulate more on weekdays and record beautiful sentences, some wonderful inspirations, or interesting stories one by one. Maybe it won't play an important role in the creation at that time, but it may be used one day in the future. The same is true for research and upgrading. As long as Miss Hermione Granger thinks it is valuable, she will secretly collect it. This is called silent effort, and then surprise everyone. In fact, in addition to relying on system plugins, Miss Hermione's many abilities now are also due to her own efforts. And these efforts are not achieved in one fell swoop, but have grown step by step over a long period of time and a good habit of being proactive. Miss Hermione will not spend time and energy on love, so she will have plenty of time to do work, do what she likes and thinks is meaningful. At this time, it is the last moment of the battle between Thor and the destroyer. The system dialog box in front of Ms. Hermione Granger popped up again. Option 1. Although the destroyer has killed countless people, it is still relatively few compared to the enemies killed by Thor. In horizontal comparison, the destroyer is innocent and should not be destroyed by Thor like this. The task requires you to save the destroyer. Completing the task will reward 1,000 kilograms of precious metals. Option 2. Although the destroyer is controlled by Loki and has no heart, since it is an enemy weapon, there is no mercy. Use magic to secretly help Thor to completely destroy the destroyer. Completing the task will reward 100 kilograms of liquid metal. Option 3. Everything in the world, joys and sorrows, ups and downs, it is too normal. Just need to take care of yourself. You can't care so much about others, and ask not to take action. Completing the task will reward 1 kilogram of rare metal. The 3 options of rewards this time involve a lot of metal knowledge. First of all, the precious metals in option 1. Precious metals mainly refer to 8 metal elements such as gold, silver and platinum group metals, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium, osmium, iridium, platinum. Most of these metals have beautiful colors and strong chemical stability. Under normal conditions, it is not easy to react chemically with other chemical substances. The liquid metal rewarded in option 2 refers to an amorphous metal. Liquid metal can be regarded as a mixture of positive ion fluid and free electron gas. Among the single substances, only mercury is a liquid metal, and gallium, rubidium, and cesium are low melting point metals. Rare metals awarded by option 3. Rare metals are metals with low content in the Earth's crust, sparse distribution or difficult to extract from raw materials, such as lithium, beryllium, titanium, vanadium, germanium, niobium, molybdenum, cesium, lanthanum, tungsten, radium, etc. It can also be subdivided into rare light metals, rare precious metals, rare dispersed metals, rare earth metals, refractory rare metals, and radioactive rare metals. So theoretically speaking, although the rare metals awarded by option 3 are the least, only 1 kilogram, their rarity is indeed the most valuable. Of course, even if the system does not reward, Miss Hermione can shuttle between major metal laboratories and easily obtain them directly by taking. It's just that the system task rewards are undoubtedly simpler, more convenient, and more stable. According to Hermione Granger's personality, option 3 is the best choice. She watched quietly. Thor's ultimate move was simply like destroying the world, falling from the sky, the terrifying Thor's hammer with a powerful attack, all 100% of the attack on the destroyer. At that moment, the destroyer could not withstand such a powerful blow, and it instantly shattered into pieces, turning into a pile of metal blocks falling to the ground. Congratulations on completing option 3 task. Reward 1 kilogram of rare metal. The destroyer is actually quite strong, but Loki who controls it is not. Since the destroyer was destroyed, Hermione had another thought: can she create a robot of her own, destroyer, like Odin did back then? Of course, if Miss Hermione made it, the name must be changed. Guardian sounds better. Learning is essential. Hermione went to collect a lot of destroyer wreckage fragments for future research. Thor fought against the destroyer, and the terrifying fighting power shocked the spectators in the town. S.H.I.E.L.D. also changed their views on Thor and re-evaluated his danger level. At this time, Agent Phil Coulson sighed that fortunately he had foresight before and did not offend Thor too much, otherwise it would really be a bad ending now. Thor was already a burly man. After defeating the destroyer, he flew over in a cloak of armor. Jane Foster, a woman who had feelings for Thor, was so happy at this moment. The person I like will one day step on a colorful cloud and come down from the sky to marry me. Every girl's romance is probably just like this. Thor did not show too much ruthlessness. After gaining power and defeating the enemy, the first place he came to was naturally in front of Jane Foster. Of course, Thor really wanted to meet the mysterious savior, Miss Hermione Granger, but unfortunately, Thor did not know where this savior was. The savior Hermione was too mysterious. Thor, it turns out that what you said before was true. Jane Foster was so excited that she didn't know what to say. Thor smiled and explained, I have never lied to you. The old professor and Jane Foster's sister were in a very complicated mood. The big fool before turned out to be a man in a myth. This was too difficult for ordinary people to accept. Chapter 428 Hermione the Savior. Agent Phil Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D. also came over with his men. Although it was almost impossible to handcuff Thor and arrest him with their current capabilities, they had to at least register and learn about the relevant information. Thor had important things to do, so he certainly didn't have the time to register with S.H.I.E.L.D. After his brief introduction, he said to Agent Phil Coulson in a tone that did not allow for rebuttal, I said that this hammer is my weapon. You didn't believe it, and you forcibly took away all the astronomical research materials of Jane Foster and others. I hope you will return them all immediately. As for my identity, I have explained a lot to Miss Jane. You can ask her about it. As for the follow-up matters, we will talk about it when I come back. Agent Phil Coulson could feel the powerful aura of Thor, and he did not dare to neglect it, and of course he would not lose the face of S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, S.H.I.E.L.D. is a department used to deal with supernatural forces. Okay, now we have figured out that the hammer that fell from the sky is your weapon. As for your full identity, it would be best if you had time to register with S.H.I.E.L.D. We will immediately return all the information from Ms. Jane's Research Institute and give a certain amount of compensation. Compensation is crucial and is the key point. Circle it for examination. If Thor hadn't shown his power, not to mention returning the information immediately, it would be a fantasy to compensate. Yeah, Thor nodded and stopped talking to Agent Phil Coulson. Although Phil Coulson didn't do anything excessive when he kidnapped Thor, such as shooting, inhuman torture, and severe torture, it was impossible for Thor to have no complaints against S.H.I.E.L.D. Thor. Are you going to leave? Jane Foster was very worried. Thor told her part of the story about Thor. Now that Thor has regained his power, he must be going back to Asgard. Thor hugged Jane Foster's shoulders and said affectionately, Jane, I was ignorant when I was young and made many mistakes. Now that I have picked myself up again, I will definitely go back to solve some problems. Wait for me. I will definitely come back." Thor's previous performance was remarkable, but at this point, he gradually became a scumbag. Men's promises are sometimes worse than shit. When they are in the mood, they can say anything like forever, but when they really encounter problems, they are dumbfounded. If you can't give a result, don't make a promise easily. Of course, Miss Hermione Granger, who was invisible on the side, also understood that no one is perfect, even God. It is impossible to demand perfection from Thor. As a bystander, from a god's perspective, you can naturally see exactly where Thor is a scumbag. However, as the person involved, when he said this, he was really sincere. In short, it can't be a full score, but at least it's not 0 points. Miss Hermione felt that she had not been back to Hogwarts for a long time. Recently, Thor 1 ended. Should she continue to stay in Marvel as a savior, or go back to Hogwarts to live in a magic school for a while? The answer is left to the system. The system did not prompt that there was a mission in Hogwarts, so she continued to stay with Thor and wait until he solved the villain Loki. The story still needs to be more complete, otherwise, when Miss Hermione Granger went back to Hogwarts and came back, the connection of Thor's story would definitely have a strong sense of disconnection. Thor and the 4 warriors reorganized themselves and came to the teleportation array in the desert. The 5 of them were going to go back to Asgard to find trouble with the second prince Loki. Loki deceived Thor so badly, this matter could not be let go. In addition, Thor regained Thor's hammer, and he also understood the true meaning of his father Odin. Odin did not want to exile Thor permanently. He just temporarily deprived Thor of his divine power and turned him back to being an ordinary person, so that he could experience the love and hatred of the world. When he really grew up and became sensible, Thor's hammer would automatically unseal and return to Thor, and this was also the time when Odin forgave his son Thor. So Thor must return to Asgard, which was reasonable. Heimdall, Thor held Thor's hammer in his hand, which had a unique shape, and he called out loudly to the sky. The divine power could transmit his voice to the Rainbow Bridge in Asgard, but Thor could never receive a reply. Thor was very anxious. Although he successfully obtained divine power, his power was very single, which was the defect of partial development. Thor was so strong in lightning and strength that he could kill the destroyer alone. However, he was completely incapable of auxiliary abilities such as teleportation and time travel. Including his 4 warriors, none of them could do it. Even Odin needed the Rainbow Bridge teleportation array to quickly teleport to various places in the 9 realms. A dialog box immediately appeared in front of Ms. Hermione Granger. Option 1. Appear in front of Thor again and tell him not to worry. She will help him solve the problem of teleporting back to Asgard. Completion reward basic attribute +1. Option 2. Directly act secretly, use your own door key, and quickly travel Thor and others directly to Asgard. Completion reward basic attribute +1. Option 3. Why go back? Isn't it good to stay in the human world? There is the beautiful Jane Foster by your side, raising children, and living a happy life. Why do you have to go back to Asgard and get involved in the power dispute and prevent Thor from returning to Asgard? Completion reward basic attribute +1. Yes, the rewards for the 3 options are the same. This can save Miss Hermione from having to think about which reward is suitable for her. Option 2 is similar to option 1. One is to act secretly, and the other is to act openly. Option 3 is to do the opposite. Miss Hermione felt that she could give the answer to Thor. Anyway, she had just appeared once, so she would pretend again this time. Just when Thor and his 4 soldiers were getting impatient, a strange spatial fluctuation suddenly appeared in the void in front of them. And then the extremely graceful figure of Ms. Hermione Granger suddenly appeared. Miss Hermione used a powerful magic, and only Thor could see her, but his 4 soldiers could not. Hermione did this to minimize her influence on them. At the same time, it also avoided the trouble of explaining again. Thor had already seen her, so there was no need to introduce himself again, but Thor's 4 soldiers had not seen her. It was too troublesome to let them see her suddenly, explain, and convince them. It's you, The savior. The moment Thor saw Hermione, his heart was extremely complicated. The Thor's hammer in his hand also became heavier, because of the ugly duckling carving on the handle. He probably guessed who made it. He didn't expect that the savior, who looked serious and solemn, had such a childish side of graffiti. To make a long story short, I will give you a few choices. 1. Stay in the human world and don't go back to Asgard. 2. You can choose to go back and I will help you. Thor did not make a decision without thinking like before. He has seen the power of the savior, although he is full of doubts like Iron Man and the Hulk, such as why the savior chose him. But these questions are not the time to ask now. Besides, if the savior is unwilling to answer, it will be useless even if you ask. Thor is very smart. He understands that the savior goddess must have her intentions when giving the choice. So he asked, is there any difference between these two choices? Chapter 429. The savior. Hermione is too mysterious. As the savior, Hermione certainly wouldn't tell Thor clearly. It was enough for her to know the secret. After all, even if ordinary people prayed to God, God would not tell ordinary people in detail about their future destiny. Thor, I only provide choices. As for the results, you have to bear them yourself. As the savior, Hermione's words sounded cold. Thor had too many doubts about Hermione, but he also knew that now was not the time to solve many doubts. Moreover, even if he had the intention, the savior might not be interested. I want to stay with Jane Foster in the world, but after learning that my father is not dead and Loki deceived me, I can't remain indifferent. I choose to return to Asgard. This is the answer of Thor. Okay, I'll arrange it. After Hermione finished speaking, she disappeared again. Too mysterious. Thor was not a person who had never seen the world, but it was really too difficult to explain at this moment. This beautiful woman who was suffocating was shrouded in a thick fog that people could not see through. It was not until Miss Hermione left that Thor's 4 warriors asked in surprise, Your Highness Thor, who were you talking to just now? Thor also looked at the female warrior Sif beside him with curiosity, and asked in confusion, Didn't you see it just now? What did you see? We only saw Your Highness Thor talking to the air. I can't hear it clearly. Thor was undoubtedly shocked again. As expected of the savior, she is too strong. As long as she doesn't want to, no one can see her, or even hear her speak. Thor is also a knowledgeable god, but facing such a mysterious savior, he really thinks that the other party is so strong. Maybe the strongest woman Thor has ever seen in his life. You know, when he fought the destroyer, there was another detail. Thor clearly remembered that his Thor's hammer was originally very far away from the town, and when the savior suddenly appeared to help him, Thor's hammer immediately appeared less than 10 meters away from him. In other words, the hammer of Thor, which no one else could lift, could be lifted and moved quietly in front of the savior. All kinds of details, it's terrifying to think about them. Hermione Granger didn't delay. After putting the pen in front of Thor, she immediately took out the portkey and teleported to Asgard. Miss Hermione is sometimes quite childish. Of course, the premise is that it is not an optional task required by the system to dance on the spot, do splits, stand upside down and rotate. It must be her own will. Just like ordinary people doing housework, washing dishes, etc. If I want to do it myself, of course I will feel less repulsive, and even if I am in a good mood, I will enjoy it. On the contrary, if someone else calls or asks me to do it, it will make people uncomfortable. For example, I originally planned to fold a quilt by myself after getting up, but at this time my parents ran in and said, Get up and fold the quilt. Okay. After saying this, I instantly lost interest in folding the quilt. It's even boring. Miss Hermione's journey is reflected in her pure and lovely girl. Just like there is a saying, men are teenagers until they die, which means that boys have a childish side no matter how old they are. Girls actually have it too, but many girls lose their childishness as they grow older, hurt by love, beaten by society, and tortured by trivial things in life. But Hermione is different. Many boys like her in Hogwarts, but she just doesn't fall in love. Her heart, including her body, is always in a girlish state. Therefore, She can always maintain that lovely side. I saw Hermione came to a very remote place and Asgard alone. She put on the Magneto bracelet, put her hands together, and acted like a ninja in Naruto. With the Chunin seal, she called out, "Reincarnation." Of course, Hermione didn't really know this trick. She was just deeply influenced by the system's funny things and suddenly thought of this stalk. In fact, her reincarnation was just to bury Heimdall, who was frozen by Loki, deep underground. Now with the help of Magneto's bracelet, through the powerful magnetic force, the soil is broken, and then the coffin containing Heimdall is brought out, commonly known as high-quality reincarnation. Loki could never have dreamed that on that day at the Rainbow Bridge, Heimdall was taken away by Hermione in front of him, and then directly put into the coffin, and then buried deep underground in a wasteland in Asgard. Only Miss Hermione can do this kind of thing. Now when Heimdall came on stage, Hermione took Heimdall, who was still frozen, into an ice sculpture, and directly teleported to the Rainbow Bridge through the door key, put down the ice sculpture of Heimdall, and then Hermione blew a breath of fairy air over. When the fairy air touched the frozen guardian sword in Heimdall's hand, cracks began to appear on the ice immediately, and as the cracks expanded, the ice broke directly. As a research expert, Miss Hermione had studied the icebox at the beginning. She was very familiar with the freezing ability of the icebox and how to solve the freezing problem. Even Hermione put on the transparent gloves she developed and used ice crystal to exert the same freezing ability as the icebox. This is the savior, whose ability is close to omnipotence. The ice on Heimdall's body cracked, and then the stubborn ice began to fall one by one on the Rainbow Bridge. At this time, the final battle of Asgard is about to begin. On Loki's side, after he learned that he failed to kill the eldest prince Thor by controlling the destroyer, but was killed by Thor, he was angry and collapsed. However, at this point, he had no way back. He immediately made the next plan go ahead. A large number of enemies of the Jotunheim frost giants began to come to Asgard through the Rainbow Bridge teleportation array. At the beginning, Loki, as the new king, cooperated with Laufey, the leader of the frost giants. It was Loki who created an opportunity for Laufey, the frost giant king, to invade Asgard and kill Odin. Now, in the human world, the destroyer's plan to kill Thor has failed. Then the plan to kill Odin must be implemented as soon as possible. Otherwise, when Thor comes back and wakes up the sleeping Odin, Loki will be finished. The father and son team up, and Loki will lose miserably. Now he can only fight a desperate battle. However, the frost giants who just invaded through the Rainbow Bridge were all killed by Heimdall, who had just broken the ice, waving the guardian sword in his hand. Heimdall didn't know who helped him, but at this moment, he was on the Rainbow Bridge, the ice on his body was untied, and there were a large number of frost giant enemies in front of him. His first reaction was naturally to start fighting as the guardian of the Rainbow Bridge. Heimdall's fighting power is still very strong, he is a fierce warrior. According to the setting of the Marvel Universe, the strong in this world have weaknesses. As a warrior, Heimdall is afraid of cunning wizards like Loki, frozen and controlled by ice. Fortunately, they have the savior goddess Hermione Granger who came from Hogwarts, and all difficulties are a piece of cake. Heimdall quickly killed all the frost giant invaders, and his originally frozen body gradually warmed up. His body joints also became more flexible. As a god, he was frozen for so long, and was put in a coffin by the goddess Hermione as a reincarnation, buried deep underground. Now that the freezing effect is removed, he can be perfectly resurrected. If it were an ordinary human, I'm afraid that after thawing, it would be a human-shaped thawed meat. All the body organs are completely necrotic, and there are no living healthy cells in the body except for a large number of bacteria. This is the difference between humans and gods. Chapter 430 Hermione's system options are very considerate of the newcomer Loki. The most fundamental difference between the gods and humans is that the gods do not follow science. Their divine power does not need to be explained by science and is a system of its own. Although Heimdall did not know why there were so many frost giant enemies on the Rainbow Bridge, he could guess that he was frozen by Loki, the second prince. In other words, The invasion of the frost giants must have something to do with Loki. Heimdall quickly came to the teleportation array and stabbed the guardian sword in his hand, shutting down the only teleportation array in Asgard. In fact, it is not only the guardian sword that can control the switch of this teleportation array, but also Odin's weapon, the Eternal Spear. Both of them have the ability to open the teleportation array of the Rainbow Bridge. After Heimdall was rescued by the goddess Hermione, it was obvious that Loki used the Eternal Spear to open the teleportation array. After Heimdall finished everything and was about to rest, he heard the call from the eldest prince Thor in the distant human world, as well as the 4 warriors of the Asgard who he had neglected his duty and let go. It was because he had abandoned the 4 warriors of Asgard and descended to the mortal world that Loki completely distrusted him and killed him. Everything has a cause and effect cycle. Now, even though Thor is still demoted, he just woke up and found that Loki, the new king, had secretly opened the teleportation array to release the invading frost giant enemies. Heimdall decided to bring Thor back immediately. Although Odin, the old man, thinks highly of himself, he has never told Heimdall that he would teleport Thor back after Thor got Thor's hammer back. But now Odin himself can't protect himself, so there is no need to care about so much. Thor and his 4 men are anxiously waiting in the mortal world. Compared with his men who are still completely unaware, Thor is obviously much calmer. With the experience of defeating the Destroyer, Thor is now full of trust in the goddess Hermione, the savior, and the goddess Hermione did not let him down. After Heimdall heard Thor's call in Asgard, he immediately turned the sword of protection in his hand. As the teleportation array began to glow and heat, Thor and his 4 warriors in the human world felt the familiar power wrapped around them at the same time. Everyone was delighted. Thor even sighed, "The savior really didn't lie to me." After goddess Hermione arranged Heimdall, she hurried to the next business-handling location. This is the palace where Loki and King Odin are located. Loki is still quite face-saving, unlike Professor Snape of Hogwarts. In the 4th year of school, the system basically does not assign system option tasks to him. After all, Loki is a newcomer, and the system options are still very considerate of newcomers. Whatever he does, Miss Hermione can pop up a task option. Laufey, the frost giant king of Jotunheim, has arrived. He really trusts the evil god Loki too much, and there are only 2 guards around him. It can be regarded as the art is high and the people are bold. Or maybe he was really determined to kill Odin, his enemy for thousands of years. Loki didn't say a word the whole time. When he reached the door, he just left. Odin's sleeping place was very spacious and magnificent. After all, he was the only king in the 9 realms who was called the God Realm. Frost giant King Laufey saw Odin lying in the nutrition cabin from a distance. After thousands of years, this old thing was finally dying. Once upon a time, this old thing killed millions of frost giants and blood flowed like a river. He took away the frost giant's treasure, the icebox, and killed his son. King Laufey still didn't know that Loki was his biological son. Odin did capture his son back then, but didn't kill him. What are you going to do? Someone come quickly. Odin's wife, the mother of Loki and Thor, was shocked. When there was almost no movement outside, the frost giants, Asgard's 1,000-year-old enemy, actually sneaked in quietly. And the leader was still King Laufey. How could Queen Frigga not be shocked when the enemy came with such a fierce force? King Laufey felt that he had become the master of the 9 realms and was in a very good mood. He sneered and said, "Madam, there is no need to shout. We have killed all the guards outside." Is the one lying here Odin, the father of the gods? Frost giant King Laufey was not a lustful person. He did not care about the beauty of Queen Frigga. Or maybe Queen Frigga was old and he looked down on her. His only purpose of invading Asgard today was Odin. This was the existence that King Laufey hated the most in the past 1,000 years. King Laufey did not say any more nonsense. He took out the ice dagger and was about to assassinate the sleeping Odin. When the legendary King Odin was about to die, the system on Miss Hermione's side popped up. Option 1. There may be several situations in a while, requiring you to stop Loki from taking action, so that King Laufey can successfully assassinate Odin and let Odin die in his sleep. Completing the task will reward King Odin with the remaining 100 years of life. Option 2. Loki is still hesitating. Let him firmly believe that he must continue to act, successfully rescue King Odin, and complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Option 3. Wait and see, I'll just watch the show. Who lives and who dies has nothing to do with me. Complete the task to reward 1 advanced magic book. The rewards of these 3 options are very powerful, and they are different. King Odin's remaining 100 years of life sound very tempting, but it only increases life, not strength. If King Odin's lifelong cultivation and divine power are given to Hermione, that's about it. Lifespan is something that ordinary people can't ask for, but for a legendary magician like Hermione Granger, it's too simple. The Philosopher's Stone in Harry Potter 1-inch can prolong life, and Hermione also stole a small piece of the Philosopher's Stone fragment. Now her basic magic knowledge is very solid, and she can completely restore the Philosopher's Stone with a little time. By then, let alone an extra 100 years of life, even hundreds or thousands of years will be very easy. But Miss Hermione is not willing to extend her life in this way at present. She has a system plug-in, and her future is limitless. The Philosopher's Stone can extend her life, but it has too many limitations and is not the most ideal material in Miss Hermione's mind. She is still young and does not need to consider extending her life at all. Improving strength is more critical. Moreover, option 1 is not what Miss Hermione wants to do. If she helps King Laufey kill Odin, wouldn't Hermione become a villain? Moreover, if Thor knows that his father's death is related to Miss Hermione Granger, there will be a gap between the two of them in the future. At least Miss Hermione Granger will be very uncomfortable, killing someone else's father, and pretending to be a savior, to assist his son. Although Miss Hermione is not an absolutely righteous person, she can't do such a thing. Option 2, rewarding basic attributes +2, is not bad. However, Loki is the evil god of Asgard, and can be said to be the one with the highest IQ. He is not the muggled Jane Foster in the world. Even though Goddess Hermione is very powerful now, she has no confidence in swaying Loki's mind and making his plan firm. It is very likely to be counterproductive. If Loki knew that even his best plan was caused by her, Hermione Granger, he would be even more furious. So, considering all factors, option 3 is the simplest and most suitable for Miss Hermione's mentality of not wanting to cause trouble. At the same time, the reward is not bad. Advanced Magic Book. Now Miss Hermione has learned almost all the magic and forbidden spells of Hogwarts. The new magic rewarded by the system is what Miss Hermione desires most. As a goddess of magic, Hermione's magic must be all-powerful and omnipotent to be better and more wonderful. Chapter 431 Enemies Meet. Hermione's choice was certainly traceable, and choice 3 was of course the most comfortable answer. All that was left was to wait for the result. Loki did not disappoint Hermione. He had already left, but in the end he turned back. Perhaps Loki was also suffering in his heart. His plan this time was two-way. There was no absolute wrong, nor was there an absolute right. It just depended on how he chose. Loki was extremely entangled in his heart. He did not know the answer, but he was eager for the answer, and there were not many opportunities waiting for him. It was very likely that one wrong step would lead to another, and then there would be no way back. But he had no more choices, either go on or give up. Loki finally made a move. He was very fast, holding the Spear of Eternity in his hand, and rushed over. King Laufey's expression at this moment was extremely wonderful. He seemed to have seen the most unlikely thing in the world, but it really happened. It appeared so timely and so daunting. King Laufey would never forget this scene today until he died. Boom! A terrifying blow struck, and King Laufey didn't even utter a last word, and he just died. How cruel! Miss Hermione Granger sighed, and she even had the urge to tell Loki that King Laufey, who was just brutally killed by you, was actually your biological father. You beast who killed your father. Miss Hermione Granger didn't do this cruel thing in the end, not because she was kind, but because she felt it was unnecessary. Mother, are you okay? Loki came to the Queen and started acting. Of course, His acting skills were beyond reproach. No one in Asgard dared to say he was the best. The most cruel thing about Loki was that he even deceived himself. For example, his decision just now was like this. He could have let King Laufey kill Odin and then appeared to kill King Laufey, but he even deceived himself. He felt that he was still Odin's son anyway. As a son, he could tell some lies, even cheat, but he couldn't be a traitor. As a result, he killed King Laufey directly. This King Laufey is Loki's biological father. "I'm fine. Look at your father." The queen's feelings for Odin are still very real. At this time, Odin was sleeping peacefully, as peaceful as ever, as if the assassination and counter-killing that just happened had nothing to do with him. People who are sleeping and unaware are comfortable. Miss Hermione Granger's favorite thing is also sleeping, and among her favorite things, nothing else can surpass her love for sleeping. Congratulations on completing the Option 3 task and Reward 1 Advanced Magic Book. This is a good thing. Miss Hermione said she likes it very much. And at this time, the eldest Prince Thor also came with his many men. When he saw Loki, the enemies met and were particularly jealous. "Loki, you liar!" Loki pretended to be innocent and said, "Brother, why are you back?" "Mother, don't believe him, he is a liar." Thor saw the queen and Loki together and was worried about his mother's safety. "Mother, this Loki concealed the fact that my father was sleeping. When my men told me, he sent the destroyer to kill me. He deserves death." Thor was furious. Loki was panicking inside, but he pretended to be calm on the surface and said, "Thor, you can't say anything without evidence." Seeing that this hateful Loki still wanted to quibble, Thor stopped talking and picked up the hammer in his hand to attack. For a time, sand and rocks flew everywhere, and the effect was extremely terrifying. Although Loki knew his elder brother's character, this situation was beyond his expectations. When Thor hit people, he really didn't show any mercy. Boom. Loki was attacked by Thor on the spot. The scene was in chaos. Only Hermione stood aside. Of course, she was invisible at the moment, and others couldn't see her. Of course, Hermione had to go over to watch this peak martial arts scene. After all, this was already the finale of Thor 1. However, Miss Hermione still had the system option task. Option 1. Help Thor defeat Loki, and take the opportunity to get rid of Loki directly. This guy who killed his father should not live in this world. Complete the task and get a basic attribute +1. Option 2. No matter how hateful Loki is, he did those things without knowing, which is excusable, so choose to help Loki and defeat Thor, this foolish man. Complete the task and get a basic attribute +1. Option 3. Let them solve the war between Thor and Loki by themselves. Go see Odin and successfully awaken Odin. This is the key. Complete the task and get a basic attribute +1. The rewards are the same, so Hermione only needs to think about how to do these 3 tasks more appropriately. After thinking about it, helping Thor is undoubtedly the most righteous way, but there is an additional condition in Option 1, that is, to kill Loki, which is not what Hermione wants to do. So, Hermione decided to do Option 3, because Option 2 is not worth her doing. Undoubtedly, Option 3 also has difficulties. But this does not hinder Hermione's prediction of the future, because in the original play, Odin also woke up later. This Odin, who is in Asgard, is similar to Dumbledore in Hogwarts. He is often a supporting role. His role is minimal, at most he is just a reputation. "Son, why are you fighting?" The Queen Mother did not understand the behavior between Thor and Loki at this moment. Before Thor was demoted to Asgard by Odin, the relationship between the brothers was very good. Why do they fight as soon as they meet? There are too many things that people cannot understand, but the son is no longer under the control of the mother. The Queen Mother's obstruction did not delay the continued fight between Thor and Loki at all. Loki is also a big sand sculpture. Although Loki is indeed strong, as a great wizard of Asgard, you don't think about how to play your strengths, but instead hold the eternal spear and Thor, the berserker, head-on, who gave him the courage. Even if the eternal spear is really powerful, the premise is that you, Loki, must be at the level of Odin, without that level, but still forcing to fight. The final result is naturally obvious. Loki was beaten back step by Thor. Of course, the beautiful Ms. Hermione Granger could not see the fight between the brothers. She had to start to complete her own task. The Queen also has some strength, but in front of the nearly omnipotent Miss Hermione, of course it is not enough. Hermione is standing in front of her, but she doesn't notice her at all. Miss Hermione is a good person, and naturally she won't do anything excessive. Hermione's snow-white little hand stretched out, and many magical elements in the void began to enter Odin's body. As the father of the gods, Odin's body is indeed extraordinary. Hermione even thought about using puppetry to make Odin's body directly into a puppet, and then controlling him to fight, which seems to be more cool, but after thinking about it, she decided to forget it. Happy New Year, everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432 Brotherhood. Thor, you always look so high and mighty. I know that you have looked down on me since childhood. Loki started to complain when he couldn't beat Thor. Of course, he didn't really give up in his heart. He still had many plans that he hadn't really implemented yet. Facing his brother's accusation, Thor waved the hammer in his hand and the force began to weaken. He replied, "Loki, I have never looked down on you. You think too much." Loki could keenly feel that the force of the hammer in Thor's hand was indeed much lighter. It was not like when they just met. Every move was going to kill him. It seemed that his words had an effect. Loki continued to use his eloquence and said, "My silly brother, take a good look at your warriors. Even though I have successfully ascended the throne as the king of Asgard, look at them. Have they ever respected me?" Thor really looked back. The three warriors of Asgard, plus the female warrior Sif, looked at Loki with eyes that really looked down on him. However, Thor was not fooled by Loki. He answered directly, "You have brought this upon yourself. You lied to me that my father died because of me, which made me feel disheartened, and you took the opportunity to ascend the throne. Loki, what I want to tell you is that if you really want the throne, I can give it to you. You shouldn't use such a cruel method." Especially later, Loki sent the Destroyer, who was guarding the Asgard arsenal, down to the mortal world to kill Thor. This was the beginning of the complete break in the brotherhood between Thor and Loki, and it would be difficult to make up for this matter in the future. "Stop talking big. Can you give up the throne just because you want to?" Loki said something very realistic. "Will my father agree?" Thor was silent for a while. Indeed, according to the tradition of Asgard, Thor, as the eldest prince, had not died, and the second prince Loki's ascension to the throne would definitely be gossiped about. "I will convince my father." Thor felt that those who have a will can achieve their goals. If he told King Odin about the situation, he would definitely understand. "Don't be naive, Thor. Only if you die can I become the king of Asgard." Loki began to go crazy. After he used the eternal spear in his hands to fly Thor away, he quickly flew in one direction. "I will prove to my father that I, Loki, am the king of Asgard. I am more suitable than my stupid brother Thor." The next behavior is also part of Loki's plan. Just now, in front of his mother, he successfully rescued the sleeping Odin and directly killed King Laufey of the Frost Giants. With such great achievements, Loki will continue to add bricks and tiles. "Loki, what are you going to do?" Thor can no longer see through his younger brother. When he goes crazy, no one knows what he can do. Loki did not answer Thor again. He was very fast. After leaving the Asgard palace, Thor could see clearly where Loki wanted to go, the Rainbow Bridge. What is he going to do there? Escape with the power of the Rainbow Bridge? Thor didn't know, but he didn't have time to think about it at the moment, and rushed over immediately. No matter what Loki planned to do next, Thor would stop him. At this moment in King Odin's palace, the queen was very sad, and the body of King Laufey of the Frost Giants was still lying not far away. The crisis just now was resolved, and now the two children she raised, Thor and Loki, started fighting directly. Brothers killing each other, This is what parents don't want to see the most. The sons of human emperors sometimes number dozens or even hundreds, because human emperors have 3 palaces, 6 courtyards, 72 concubines, and 3,000 beauties in the harem. With so many children, the competition is naturally cruel. However, King Odin and the Queen of Asgard in the movie have only 2 children, but these 2 children are still not worrying, and now they kill each other while Odin is asleep. Although the Queen did not know the details, she probably understood a little bit after hearing Thor's accusations against Loki. Thor was different from Loki since he was a child. If Loki had said those words just now, the Queen might have doubted them, but what Thor said was very likely to be true. Loki, did he really do so many wrong things for the throne? Odin, please wake up soon. At this time, I really don't know what to do. The Queen called out to King Odin. In the past, King Odin's sleep could be as short as a few years or as long as hundreds of years. But in the movie, he suddenly woke up, and the director did not give a specific reason. But here, because of the system choice of the savior Miss Hermione Granger who came through time and space, a reasonable explanation can naturally be drawn. I saw Hermione controlling the magic and taking out the advanced magic book she had just obtained. It was better to sharpen the spear before the battle. Of course, Hermione, who was confident, had already thought of a way, but she wanted to take the opportunity to see if there was a more effective way in this new advanced magic book. If there is, it is not impossible to learn on the spot. As for the 2 fighting Thor and Loki, Miss Hermione doesn't care who wins and who loses, who lives and who dies. Not to mention, Hermione really found some ways. In the advanced magic book, there is a very short spell that can even wake up the stone. Very advanced. As expected of an advanced magic book, Hermione used this spell to welcome King Odin. The effect is very significant. When the advanced light of the spell entered Odin's brain, it quickly formed extremely mysterious power in his old body. The power was like a shot of adrenaline, which directly activated Odin. Odin sat up suddenly, feeling full of energy, as if he was a dozen years younger. Of course, for Odin, the father of the gods, the age of a teenager did not have any obvious effect. After all, his lifespan is a 1,000-year-old monster. King Odin, you really woke up. So good, so good. The Queen on the side cried with joy, and she thought it was her credit. Odin's eyes soon saw King Laufey lying on the ground, dead. The horrible fatal wound was obviously caused by his eternal spear. The Queen's reaction was also wrong, and it was obvious that something big had just happened here. After his body was fully revived, as King Odin, he could quickly feel an abnormal power in his body. This power did not come from Asgard or the Frost Giants. Could there be another race of power here? Odin immediately asked the Queen. The Queen did not dare to neglect it and told King Odin everything she knew. King Odin learned from the Queen that Loki, the second prince, had ascended the throne as the new king while he was sleeping, and he was quite dissatisfied. Later, Thor came back with Thor's hammer, and King Odin was very relieved. Thor was able to pick up Thor's hammer again, which showed that he had indeed grown a lot. When he heard Thor come back and say that he was deceived by Loki and Loki sent the destroyer to kill Thor, King Odin was immediately furious. And Loki is not completely useless. When King Laufey of the Frost Giants was about to assassinate King Odin, it was Loki who killed King Laufey in time. Who would have thought that King Laufey would die so aggrievedly? King Odin certainly knew that Loki and King Laufey were father and son, but neither of them knew about it. It can be said that Odin indirectly caused this result, causing Loki to kill his biological father with his own hands. Of course, King Odin would never tell this secret to Loki. Chapter 433 Humor. Because Odin could feel a strange feeling in his body immediately after waking up, he asked the Queen beside him if he had just been saved by a special existence. The Queen replied that she had not, and that she might have woken you up accidentally in her anxiety. After hearing this, Odin was undoubtedly silent immediately. Why didn't he realize that the Queen had such a humorous side before? However, since the Queen felt so, Odin would not explain too much to prevent her from thinking too much and making things complicated, because this kind of thing is really hard to explain. After successfully completing the task, Hermione was able to do it without exposing herself in front of Odin, which was undoubtedly very powerful. Odin knew that his two sons were killing each other, so he naturally couldn't sit idly by and rushed over quickly. At this time, Thor and Loki were also fighting hard. As the evil god of Asgard, Loki's final plan was to hold the eternal spear in his hand and pierce this weapon representing the legend directly into the Rainbow Bridge teleportation array. At first, Thor didn't realize the real purpose of Loki's doing this. When the surging power of the Spear of Eternity was transmitted, like a crystal tree, it immediately permeated the entire teleportation. Thor finally understood what Loki wanted to do. Thor shouted loudly, "Loki, what are you doing? You can't do this." Loki was unwilling to admit that he was defeated. He roared loudly, "Thor, I am the new king of Asgard. What I do is completely up to my own mood." Then Loki added, "I want my father to understand that I am the real new king. Thor, I am much stronger than you." From the perspective of an observer, it seems to be true. Loki designed to kill Laufey, the leader of the Frost Giants, and now he stabbed the Spear of Eternity into the teleportation array. At this moment, the Spear of Eternity seemed to have truly exerted its full power. Just these are enough to prove how powerful and terrifying Loki is. The power of the Spear of Eternity was transmitted through the Rainbow Bridge teleportation array, directly attacking the Frost Giants in the distant Jotunheim. This kind of dimensionality reduction attack, transmitted through the Rainbow Bridge teleportation array, and the high-level genocide-level massacre was also thought up by Loki. At this moment, in the barren Jotunheim territory, the terrifying attack of the Spear of Eternity from the distant Asgard was like lightning from the sky, ravaging the earth. In just a few minutes, countless Jotunheim Frost Giants died. This kind of dimensionality reduction-like massacre killed more enemies than when Thor went directly to Jotunheim to find a place to kill. "Loki, what are you doing?" Thor understood the whole story, and he could not accept Loki's inhumane massacre. Loki said, "It will only take a few hours, and the Frost Giants in Jotunheim will no longer exist." Loki was so terrible that he would exterminate the entire race when he started. Although it was inhumane, it was indeed a method if Asgard would never be invaded by the Frost Giants of Jotunheim again, although this method is destined to be done by villains. As a superhero now, Thor should not use such a bottom-line killing method even when dealing with enemies. He stopped him and said, "Loki, you are really crazy. How could you do such a thing?" Loki retorted, "I did nothing wrong. I just let my father know that I am the king of Asgard. I have killed the king of the Frost Giants, Laufey. Now, in just a few hours, I can kill all the Frost Giants and make them history from now on. There will be no threat to Asgard. Those who achieve great things must be ruthless." "So, Thor, you are not worthy of being the king of Asgard at all," Thor said angrily. "Loki, you are evil in your mind and you can't extricate yourself. I must help you correct it as your brother." If Thor was younger, he might really agree with Loki's decision. After all, if the entire Frost Giants disappeared, it would indeed be a way to resolve the war for Asgard. But Loki's behavior is too evil and inhumane. This is the behavior of a tyrant villain, and it is despised by the Nine Realms. The real God realm is not only a powerful existence, but also a symbol of civilization. Loki is too barbaric. Asgard, under his command, is completely the incarnation of the devil. Someone must stop Loki, otherwise Asgard will no longer be the God realm, but the demon realm, which is synonymous with terror and the abyss. The beautiful Miss Hermione Granger watched the battle until this time, and the system was no longer silent, and options began to pop up. Option 1. The Frost Giants of Jotunheim and Asgard are in opposition, but from the perspective of God, there is no right or wrong, so Loki's inhumane behavior should be stopped. It is required to help Thor kill Loki. Completing the task will reward the exclusive attribute, Super Justice, +1. Option 2. Species extinction is irreversible. The Frost Giants of Jotunheim will be exterminated by their prince Loki. It is also destined. It should not be stopped, but should be allowed to happen naturally. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute. Let it be, +1. Option 3. Whether right or wrong, it's troublesome. It's better to be free and unrestrained and not care about anything. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, leisure, +1. There is no doubt that none of the exclusive attributes of these three options are what Ms. Hermione Granger wants. But now it is obvious that she can only choose one that she thinks is suitable. Miss Hermione does not want to comment on Loki's behavior. After all, if you want to be a free person, you must be heartless, because there are too many pains in the world. If Hermione has a heart attack and thinks about how to save everything in the world all day long, then it will be difficult for her to be happy again. The universe is really too big. Even if Hermione is the savior, she can't take care of everything. So the answer to this multiple choice question is already obvious. Option 3. Stand aside and watch. Even if Miss Hermione does nothing, time will give the answer. And the answer is that Thor rushed to Loki and knocked him down with one punch. His approach is the same as the punch he is throwing at this moment. Loki sent the destroyer to kill him. According to normal people's behavior, if Loki didn't let Thor live, then Thor could also not let the latter live, tooth for tooth. However, Thor didn't do that. He seemed to have matured too much in the human world. After he knocked Loki down with a punch, he didn't immediately finish off Loki. Instead, he gifted Loki the Thor's hammer in his hand. Loki was so happy that such a good thing was thought of. Thor's gift was to press the Thor's hammer directly on Loki's body. Thor was sure that with Loki's character, he couldn't lift the Thor's hammer. Sure enough, Loki was pressed by the Thor's hammer and couldn't move. Fortunately, Loki was also a famous god in Asgard, so he was not crushed to death. While struggling, he had no way to deal with the Thor's hammer on his body. He could only point to the direction where Thor left and shouted, "It's too late, Thor, you can't stop this from happening." Chapter 434 God. Everyone may have a different understanding of God. Maybe the Muggles on Earth in the Marvel Universe think that the people of Asgard are God, but through Hermione's observations of traveling through time and doing various tasks, they are not the God in Hermione's mind at all. Hermione couldn't say what the God in her mind looks like, but it is definitely not like Asgard. In Hermione's view, the god of Asgard is at most a warrior and magician who is stronger than ordinary Muggles, and can't be considered a god. Thor, you can't stop all of this from happening. When my father wakes up, he will understand that I am right. Loki kept emphasizing his tone, as if he wanted to prove that he was not at fault. But his behavior was ridiculous. Thor thought Loki was just stubborn, but he never expected that what he said was true. At the end of the Rainbow Bridge at this moment, the speed of the teleportation array in the round sphere was too terrifying, and the power transmitted by the eternal spear inside was also terrifying. The huge tree body-like crystal has begun to permeate the whole legend. Even Thor, the god of thunder, can only be helpless in the face of this situation. With Hermione's divine power, there is a way to solve it, but Miss Hermione chose to stand aside and watch. Thor tried several times, and finally chose to give up. He really had no way. The power-like crystal merged with each other and became an existence that Thor could not shake. Heimdall didn't know what to do at this moment. He might leave the Rainbow Bridge and fight the invading frost giants at the other end, and he had no time to take care of this place. Thor even felt that even if Heimdall took action, he might not be able to solve the huge trouble here. At this moment, Thor seemed to have clairvoyance and could see clearly that countless frost giants in the distant land of Jotunheim were torn apart by the attack of the terrifying Eternal Spear. It was simply horrible. Perhaps those frost giants were just ordinary people, including women, the elderly and children. War is ruthless, but it cannot be without humanity. The mature Thor decided to make a bold decision, and this matter could only be done by him. Thor came back. Loki saw that Thor had returned without success. Even though he was pressed by Thor's hammer and couldn't move, he could still beep loudly, "Ha ha ha. I told you, Thor, you can't do anything in the end, you can't save anyone." Thor didn't say much nonsense to Loki. Every second he wasted, countless people of the frost giants were slaughtered. He must be like a superhero in the mouth of the savior. He suddenly picked up Thor's hammer that was pressing on Loki. Because the atmosphere on the scene was too serious, Thor and Loki, who were in a serious duel, consciously ignored the ugly duckling carving on the handle of Thor's hammer. That was Miss Hermione's work, lifelike, and always reminded the people around to look here. Thor, what do you want to do? At this moment, Loki was a little panicked. He seemed to be afraid that Thor would kill him, or maybe Thor was going to make some decisions that Loki couldn't guess at all, and this decision would surprise Loki. Sure enough, Thor did not disappoint Loki. Hammer 80. Thor turned around and raised the huge Thor's hammer in his hand, smashing it directly at the rainbow bridge under his feet. Boom! The huge sound was deafening. Because Loki was still sitting on the ground, his feet and buttocks were numb from the shock. What a huge force! But what made Loki pale instantly was not Thor's huge force, but his behavior. Thor, stop it immediately. Who allowed you to do this? Loki said angrily. I order you as the new king of Asgard, stop it immediately. Thor turned around and looked at Loki as if he were an idiot and a fool. At the beginning, even the words of Odin, the father of the gods, were ignored by Thor. Who does Loki think he is? Will Thor listen to his words? The hammer kept rumbling and smashing on the rainbow bridge. Because of the huge attack force, terrible cracks appeared on the road surface of the rainbow bridge, and the cracks continued to extend. No, absolutely not. To annihilate the entire frost giants of Jotunheim was a gift that Loki had carefully prepared for his father, and to prove that he was stronger than Thor. If it was destroyed by Thor now, then Loki would become the second for eternity, and would always be the one that others could not compare to Thor. Loki had had enough of this discrimination. As his mentality gradually collapsed, Loki decided to do something evil. Loki did not threaten Thor's girlfriend Jane Foster in the human world as in the original play, because if Loki destroyed the Rainbow Bridge, the teleportation array would fall into the endless universe, and Thor would never see his girlfriend again in the long years. Loki on his side did not care about his brother's love affairs in the human world, so for Thor, going to the human world and Jane Foster's love affair, Loki did not care at all. Loki only cared about his own great cause at this moment. He roared and rushed over, and he wanted to successfully push Thor off the Rainbow Bridge before Thor destroyed it. Thor did not dodge. At this moment, the righteousness in his heart has already transcended everything. It is no exaggeration to say that even if he died heroically, he would save countless innocent lives. Even if these innocent lives are the race of his enemies, you can say Thor is stupid or foolish. In short, he is a superhero by doing this, and Loki is the villain that everyone wants to kill. Boom. Success. Loki did not expect that Thor would directly show his back to him without any intention of dodging. Successfully knocked Thor away. The reason why Thor did not dodge was that the last blow of his Thor's hammer finally smashed the already torn Rainbow Bridge completely. No. Loki let out a desperate roar. The giant ball of the teleportation array at the end of the Rainbow Bridge is fixed. That is, if the Rainbow Bridge in the middle is broken, the teleportation array will fall directly into the Sea of Stars. Without fixed coordinates, the teleportation array can no longer attack and destroy Heimdall's frost giants through the Eternal Spear. Miss Hermione Granger, who was watching the battle, hesitated for a moment, wondering whether to sneak into the teleportation array at the end of the Rainbow Bridge and take out the Spear of Eternity when the giant ball fell. If Hermione took it, she would naturally not return the weapon to Old Man Odin. Of course, she would privatize it, but after thinking about it, Hermione had already obtained a high imitation version of Thor's hammer in Thor 1, so she should be content. Although the Spear of Eternity is also very powerful, she can't just take all the good things for herself. Moreover, the Spear of Eternity was used by Loki as a long-range cannon to exterminate the frost giants. Excessive use of the Spear of Eternity would also cause irreversible damage, just like the destroyer that Loki sent down before. In addition, Odin has woken up, so Hermione should pay more attention to the things she decides. So after comprehensive consideration, Hermione decided not to take action. If she gave away her own head because of worry, it would not be good. Miss Hermione did not admit that she was timid. She thought it was cautious. Chapter 435 The Prodigal Son Who Destroys the House. In the silent universe, the roar of a wild beast seemed to be heard from the depths of the vast night sky. No one can control what has happened. Even if there is, that person is not very willing to change it. There are too many difficult mysteries in life. These mysteries are combined together to form a whole complex life without any expectations. Thor, who came back from the earth, would never dream that he would raise Thor's hammer and smash the rainbow bridge to pieces. The huge circular teleportation array fell into the endless night sky, as if it had never appeared. At this moment, the angry Loki rushed over and took Thor to the bottom of the rainbow bridge. If there was no chance, falling from here, the ending would definitely be very embarrassing. In front of Ms. Hermione Granger, who was watching the show, a dialogue box popped up like this. Option 1. A friend came from afar, using advanced magic to make Thor and Loki leave Asgard at the same time and never come back. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute. Interesting. +1. Option 2. Rescue Loki and Thor at the same time, and find ways to reconcile the two. Completing the task will reward you with the exclusive attribute, Brotherhood. +1. Option 3. Launch a coordinate into the air so that Odin, the father of the gods, can come quickly. Completing the task will reward you with basic attribute +1. Although the basic attribute +1 appeared first, Miss Hermione admitted that she just liked it. She likes the feeling of free choice, rather than being forced to be arranged. So among the three new options, for Hermione, the first impression is naturally that option 3 is more pleasing to the eye. The second is to analyze the requirements of the option task. Option 1. Let Thor and Loki die, or fall into the abyss of time and space and leave Asgard completely. Without these two princes, Asgard will probably have a more peaceful life in the future. Option 2 is the opposite, saving these two idiots at the same time. Forget it. It's too troublesome. Let their father handle it. Hermione took out her wand and used advanced magic to make the elements around her excited and emit light that ordinary people can hardly detect with their naked eyes. The light was very dazzling, just like the colorful aurora on the earth. But this aurora created by Hermione can only be seen by the best of the best, and ordinary people can't see it at all. In other words, the signal created by Hermione using the magic wand can only be seen by Odin, and it is for Odin to see. When Odin was awakened by Hermione's call, he keenly realized that there was a power inside Asgard that he didn't even fully grasp. He didn't know what that power represented, whether it was the way of heaven. However, when he was looking for his two sons who made him worry, the dazzling and strange aurora in the sky attracted his attention. The light was so dazzling and so strange in the vast night sky, because this kind of light should not appear in Asgard, but the light appeared so naturally, not at all like man-made, just like the ancients observed the stars at night and found the instructions from heaven. At this moment, the savior Hermione represented the sky. She gave Odin guidance. On Odin's old face, the snow-white beard was puzzled, but he finally rushed in this direction, not because he was willing to accept the guidance of God, because he himself was the father of the gods. Rather, because of the signal sent by Miss Hermione, Odin successfully noticed that there was the rainbow bridge over there, and because the teleportation array was smashed down by Thor, Odin's weapon, the Spear of Eternity, also fell down. With such a series of connections, Odin could naturally block and observe clearly. Odin's speed is very fast. In the original drama and movie, there are not many shots of him showing his strength. Miss Hermione was very lucky to have traveled through time and successfully observed this shot. Odin used magic similar to space, but it was not like Space Shuttle. In the blink of an eye, he came to the broken rainbow bridge. The two brothers Thor and Loki are undoubtedly like two huskies. When the Master Odin is asleep, it is the prodigal son who wants to destroy the house. The destroyer guarding the arsenal has now become a pile of scrap metal in the human world because of Loki's private use. Thor was even better. He used the hammer given to him by Odin, and the hammer broke the rainbow bridge, which has an ancient history and is very important. These two prodigal sons are simply a shame for Asgard. But now is not the time to criticize the prodigal sons. At the critical moment, Thor and Loki fell into the vast abyss of the night sky at the same time. If they lose both sons at the same time, who will manage Asgard in the future? Odin cannot live as long as the sky. His time is coming to an end. He knows that he will not live for many years, so he must consider the future of Asgard. Almost without hesitation, Odin grabbed Thor's right hand when he fell. Loki did not want to take his brother Thor to die together. What did Odin, who suddenly woke up and jumped out, want to do? Loki, unwilling to give up, grabbed Thor's other hand. For a while, the three of them, father and son, were hanging on the rainbow bridge like a candied horse. Miss Hermione Granger in the distance couldn't help it, although she told herself over and over again that she was a sweet and lovely lady. Normal people would have bad tastes, right? Although Hermione called herself a god, she did not completely deprive herself of her emotions. Her nature remained unchanged and she did not forget her original intention, but there would always be some small uncontrollable emotions in people's character. For example, now, Hermione felt that this picture was particularly great, and it would be a pity not to take a photo as a souvenir. For a long time, as a modern person who traveled through Hogwarts and then traveled through the Marvel Universe from Hogwarts as a savior, although she was upgrading and gaining various benefits along the way, she would still laugh at herself as a time travel worker. However, she herself did not completely agree with this statement. Miss Hermione was a smart person who was improving every day and studying hard. Of course, she would not easily label herself, especially after these labels were affixed. They were not so easy to tear off. Time travel worker was just one of the labels on Miss Hermione. She could also be a savior, or it could be a plain traveler. Yes, a tourist. She took out her camera and used magic to block any sound the camera would make. Click, and successfully recorded the wonderful and rare moment of Odin, Thor, and Loki, father and son, hand in hand. The expressions of the three people recorded in the photo are so wonderful, and even everyone's eyes are full of extremely complex emotional structures. Looking at the photo with satisfaction, Miss Hermione has already thought about her future retirement life. Watching herself travel through the various planes when she was young, witnessing so many wonderful stories, and recording many wonderful moments. Even if there is only a small sense of participation, it is worth recalling. Father, Thor did not expect that at such a critical moment, he would be saved by his awakened father. On the other side of Thor's left hand is Loki. No matter how hateful Loki is, as his brother, if the younger brother does not teach, it is the elder brother's fault. The younger brother Loki can kill, but the elder brother is a superhero, so Thor will naturally not treat Loki in this way. Come up quickly, come up and talk first. Odin was an old man, and it was very difficult for him to pull the two big men at the same time. Chapter 436. What is art? What is art? Different people have different opinions, but Miss Hermione Granger thinks that taking photos of her wonderful moments is art. As a fully developed god, because all kinds of basic attributes are improving, perhaps for some ordinary people, taking photos as art is a particularly difficult thing to accomplish. But for the omnipotent Hermione, it is not the case. She rarely took photos before, but after experiencing more, her brain may not want to waste energy to store more stories, so she suddenly had a whim. Why not take photos as a souvenir? As for why she didn't use photography, after all, before Hermione crossed over from the real world to Hogwarts, short videos were already popular on the earth over there. But Hermione still likes to take photos, because it is simple, does not waste time, and at the same time, it takes less time to take them out and watch them later. If Miss Hermione's crossing over to Marvel's Thor 1-inch is just the beginning, she took videos along the way, then when she retires in the future, it is estimated that she will have accumulated tens of thousands of GB. Thinking about that data, she doesn't even want to open it to see it. Photos are much simpler, just take a look. Of course, it is also very likely that Miss Hermione will never look at these photos again in her life. Come up and talk. Odin is the father of the gods after all, and he doesn't want to keep pulling Thor and Loki in this awkward way. Thor agreed. He is much more mature now, although he is still a sand sculpture prodigal son in Hermione's eyes. At least he has learned to be considerate of others after training in the human world. Many rich second generations don't know this. It is rare for Thor, the eldest prince, to learn it. But Loki doesn't want to. He wants to make trouble. Father, I killed King Laufey with my own hands. If it weren't for Thor's destruction, the entire Frost Giants could be completely destroyed now. So, I should be better than Thor in your mind. Loki needs an answer, an affirmation. There has never been absolute fairness in this world. As the second oldest for thousands of years, Loki has many grievances and a lot to say. He needs to get his father's affirmation, and a firm answer, to prove that his choice is not wrong. You know, Loki is the prince of the Frost Giants. In order to get the approval of King Odin of Asgard, he killed King Laufey and exterminated the entire Frost Giants. How much determination does it take to do such a thing? Come up and talk. Odin still answered like this. If there is anything, come up and talk. I am an old man, and I can't hold on to holding both of you brothers at the same time. However, Odin's answer was not what Loki wanted. He was a little handsome, and suddenly smiled evilly, and said with a wry smile full of his own unique temperament, I should still be your child. This time Odin answered seriously, you will always be my son. Okay, I understand. Loki suddenly let go. Thor didn't expect Loki to let go. There is an endless abyss of time and space below. People without great luck will die if they fall down, even if they are gods. But Loki was resolute, because he knew that as long as the blood of the Frost Giants flowed in his body, he would never be better than Thor. This was an injustice that could not be changed. Loki hated why Odin had brought him to Asgard, just like a poor man with a rough life hated why his parents had given him life in this cruel world to suffer. He, Loki, would rather be a Frost Giant for his whole life, even if he would be killed by Asgard warriors on the battlefield. But at least he would not be as frustrated as he is today. When Odin came and grabbed Thor's hand instead of Loki's hand, Loki knew that as long as Loki was still alive, he would never be able to surpass Thor in his father's mind. Rather than continuing to be the second in line for 1,000 years, it would be better to. Hermione, who was watching the show, had the most beautiful face in the world. It was unlikely that she was not touched by this scene. But people are very wonderful creatures, just like, with a marriage certificate, you know that you are married. After calling himself a god, the perspective of observing everything in the world will subconsciously break away from the low-level interest and start to look at it from a higher level. All living things are like ants. Loki's failure is doomed, because the god stands on Thor's side. Odin was very sad, but he didn't show it directly on his face like Thor. After Thor was pulled up by Odin, he looked ashamed. Loki, Odin is the father of the gods after all. He nodded and said, since I woke up, I understand most things. As the father of the gods, he still has to pretend. He looks like, you don't need to say more, I can understand everything. Of course, Thor trusts his father very much. The scene changes, and they come to the celebration banquet of Asgard. Fine wine, delicious food, magnificent palaces, and beautiful women singing and dancing. The happiest ones are undoubtedly the three warriors of Asgard and the female warrior Sif who has a crush on Thor. They followed the right person. Now the eldest prince Thor has once again become a popular figure in Asgard. Following a big man, he will naturally be rich and prosperous. Thor has experienced so many things, and he has a lot of things on his mind, but he did not show it on his face. In the distance, the carefully dressed female warrior Sif looked at Thor's position. If Thor had not been demoted to the human world, then perhaps she would have married Thor at this moment. What a pity. Love is never fair. There is no such thing as who comes first or who comes later. It only matters whether he likes it or not. Thor's sweetheart is the woman in the human world, not her. Thor has a long-term vision and does not care about the private affairs of his children. Otherwise, he would not have smashed the Rainbow Bridge with a sledgehammer without hesitation, causing the teleportation array to fall completely into the abyss of time and space. Now that the broken Rainbow Bridge has no teleportation array, Thor has lost the opportunity to travel freely between the human world. He naturally became a scumbag. He made a promise to Jane Foster in the human world, but now he can't do it at all, and he can't even go back to her. No wonder the mysterious savior goddess gave him two choices. Stay in the world and be with a woman you love forever. Return to Asgard and get the throne that originally belonged to him. but completely lose the chance to see the one you love again. It seems that there is nothing in the world that can make people feel satisfied. Thor took a sip of wine and left the banquet. He went to where his father left. He knew that his father would have a lot to say to him. For Thor, he lost the chance to see his lover again. For Odin, he lost a son. At the highest point of Asgard's magnificent castle, you can see the distant golden sunset. I don't know if the sunlight here comes from the sun on Earth. The old Odin seemed to know that the one coming behind him was his eldest son Thor without looking back. But what surprised Thor next was the words that King Odin said, which was completely different from what he expected. He thought Odin would talk about Jane Foster, or Loki, or the Rainbow Bridge, or even the Spear of Eternity. But Odin didn't say any of these. Instead, he mentioned, Thor, after I woke up, I have always wanted to ask you, do you know that there is a hidden power in our Asgard? And this power is controlling our future. Odin didn't know Hermione yet, but he could feel it. Chapter 437, Caution. Thor did not expect his old father to say this. He was struggling whether to tell the truth or not, and whether his old father would doubt anything after telling the truth. Thor did not want any misunderstanding, but after comprehensive consideration, he decided to tell the truth and did not want to hide anything. Father, I should have encountered the mysterious power you mentioned. She is very beautiful and claims to be the savior. Thor told the brief experience of his encounter with Hermione. Thor was not as smart as Loki. When he found Miss Hermione, it was almost the end. It was the time of the battle with the Destroyer. After that, whether to stay in the human world or return to Asgard, the savior gave Thor another choice. After hearing the narration of his useless eldest son, King Odin frowned. He seemed to be lost in thought and did not come up with a definite answer for a long time. In Thor 1, Odin spent most of his time playing soy sauce or falling asleep. When he realized the existence of Hermione Granger, she was awakened. The traces left by Hermione's powerful power in Odin's mind were clearly visible. Then there was the guidance of the aurora above the Rainbow Bridge, which had never appeared in the sky above Asgard before. Now it has appeared one after another, and at the most critical moment. Even though Odin is old, he can guess that there is an invisible big hand behind it, controlling everything. Does she call herself the Savior? Odin is certainly familiar with this name, but it is rare for someone to be so shameless as to think of herself as a savior. Odin continued, next time you meet her, you must introduce her to your father. I have a lot of questions to ask her. As the father of the gods, Odin does not believe that others can predict the future, but from the communication between him and his son Thor just now, it seems that the savior is really extraordinary. Although Odin had never seen Hermione's beautiful face, when Thor took out his tampered Thor's hammer, the ugly duckling engraved on the handle clearly indicated that the savior could not only pick up Thor's hammer at will like Thor, but also leave her own artwork on it. This savior obviously has a more naughty side. After Thor and his father finished chatting, he came to the broken Rainbow Bridge alone. When he was fighting with Loki, Heimdall, who was nowhere to be seen, was also standing here at this time. Even though the teleportation array had been destroyed, Heimdall still did not forget his duties and continued to stick to it. Can you see the human world from here? Thor asked. He was very complicated in his heart. As a man, he should not pay too much attention to the private affairs of his children. However, after solving Loki's crisis, what he wanted most in his heart was the human woman Jane Foster. Heimdall didn't even look at Thor, but he could understand what Thor wanted to say. He looked at the sea of stars, as if he could see one of the Earths in the entire Milky Way, and then he said, I can see it. I also saw a woman named Jane Foster. She is still waiting for you to go back to her. Thor smiled when he heard this answer. He stopped talking. Even if he couldn't keep his promise, he still felt that he and his sweetheart would definitely meet again. Hermione Granger was listening to Odin and Thor talking about her. For them who didn't really know me, I was too mysterious. These words sounded really funny. However, Hermione liked this feeling very much. She hoped that she would be surrounded by a layer of mysterious substances so that others could not penetrate the thick fog and find herself. As long as she was not exposed, she would be very safe. This is the way of caution. The story of Thor 1 is also over. After Miss Hermione scattered a handful of flowers, she took out the door key without any nostalgia and planned to cross and leave this world directly. Back to Hogwarts. Hermione's business trip to the Marvel Universe was really long this time, and she almost forgot the stories of Hogwarts. Fortunately, after the time Space Gate appeared in the Dark Forest, when Hermione wore the school uniform of the magic school and stepped on the land of Hogwarts, she instantly recalled what happened before. In the Triwizard Tournament, Harry Potter has already participated in the second event, which is eating gillweed in the Black Lake. The change of Harry Potter throughout the semester is in reputation. From being despised by thousands of people at the beginning, to everyone discovering that this little boy, although not old enough, is really cool. In the second competition, he also won the second place. After the game, Harry, who received countless applause, was anxious to find Hermione Granger to talk. Harry in the original play didn't care about Hermione at this time, even if Hermione expressed her feelings to Harry several times in the original play. Harry was like a stinky and hard stone. If Harry in the original play showed a little shy love between men and women to Hermione at this time, maybe in the finale, it was Harry who became Hermione's husband in the movie, not Ron who got lucky later. Alas, love is like this. It is fleeting, and the consequence of not cherishing it is that you will not get it. However, Harry in the original movie seems to be too straight, and he seems to have never liked Hermione in the movie. Therefore, even if Hermione in the movie finally married Filch, the janitor of Hogwarts, Harry probably wouldn't care too much. At most, he would be surprised. Harry here is obviously different. Miss Hermione Granger showed her charm that was much better than ordinary girls when she was very young. Everyone loves her, and flowers bloom when they see her. Boys who don't like her, unless they have both psychological and physical problems. So Harry here has no interest in the girl named Caillou who suddenly appeared in the movie. On the contrary, Harry began to face his feelings, and he found that there was only one girl in his heart, that is Hermione. Of course, Harry would not boldly confess, because he knew that Hermione was too outstanding and she would not easily accept the love of a boy. What Harry never expected was that when he entered the grove, he saw a very surprising scene. Barty Crouch from the Ministry of Magic went into the depths of the grove alone, and seemed to be looking for something. He looked very anxious. Harry did not follow him. He was not interested in this old man. He came to find Hermione. Hermione had just returned from Marvel Asgard, breathing the air of Hogwarts and regaining the feeling of living here. Until she saw Harry coming. Hermione, I'm so glad to find you. Harry found Hermione without any effort, and was still very happy. Hermione smiled and asked, "What do you want to do with me?" Hermione was very busy in Marvel. Now she just came back and hasn't relaxed yet. "What do you want to do, Harry?" Harry looked into Hermione's big eyes. Her facial features were so beautiful, and every detail was more beautiful than a work of art. Harry did not hesitate and said directly, "Thank you for the Black Lake." Harry knew that, just like the first event of the Triwizard Tournament, the dragon fight, it was Miss Hermione who helped him secretly. Chapter 438. Don't you feel embarrassed? Cheating should be disgraceful, but it is not the case here. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry even encourages cheating, as long as you are not caught, as long as you can win in the end. If you cheat and still fail, you will be despised. Harry, I don't understand what you are talking about. Miss Hermione Granger showed her sweet smile, which seemed to illuminate everything in the sun and the grove. Harry was not stupid. He also smiled from the bottom of his heart and said, "Well, you are right. You really don't know anything." After all, it was cheating, so Hermione would certainly not boldly admit it. Everything is self-evident. Suddenly, Hermione's work came again. A transparent multiple-choice question appeared in front of her. Option 1. Invite Harry to walk deep into the grove. Complete the task and reward 1 bottle of dishwashing liquid. Option 2. Turn on the special music and large speakers for disco, and ask Harry to dance with you in this situation. Complete the task and get 10 disco songs as rewards. Option 3. take Harry to Marvel for a one-day tour to broaden his horizons and let Harry and Hogwarts understand that there is a bigger world outside like the Marvel Universe. Complete the task and get a scooter as reward. None of the rewards for the 3 tasks are what Hermione wants. It is undoubtedly not feasible to choose tasks from the rewards. Option 2. Disco songs. Stop kidding, okay? The task also requires Harry to dance with a song in this situation. Don't you think it's embarrassing? Option 3 is also, take Harry to Marvel World for a one-day tour. In fact, Miss Hermione has thought about this idea before, but she thinks it's not feasible. Although it can shock Harry and Ron, however, this will overexpose her secrets. Hermione is still a little girl who likes to think carefully, and she can't expose her ability just because she is pretending in front of her friends. So the elimination method can only be done with option 1. Although the system option does not say it clearly, Miss Hermione is not stupid, and she can naturally guess the purpose of the system option. It goes without saying, Harry, in this situation, how about we take a walk together? Abandoning Ron, the licking dog, Hermione and Harry took a walk alone. Hermione's words undoubtedly made Harry feel happy in his heart, and he naturally would not refuse. Although Harry performed well in the Triwizard Tournament, he is now an excellent and high-quality boy who is in great demand. If he wants to find one, there will naturally be no shortage of girls around him. However, today is Ms. Hermione's invitation. It seems simple, but it is actually extraordinary. Hermione is not an ordinary girl. Okay, Harry nodded and agreed. The fragmented sunlight shines through the gaps in the leaves and falls on the path full of fallen leaves. There are no pedestrians around here. Harry naturally doesn't care about Barty Crouch from the Ministry of Magic who he just met by chance. Walking side by side with the goddess, his heartbeat seems to be clearly visible. The pleasant smell on Hermione's body also spreads in Harry's nose. Harry has a lot to say, but he doesn't know how to start for a while. Poor boy. If he had a mobile phone, he could check the internet and learn some earthy love words and love talk, but this trick is of no use to Ms. Hermione. The two walked for a while, and finally Hermione spoke first. Harry, do you have any plans for the future? With the question, the conversation will be much simpler. Harry thought for a while and said, I'm not sure. I think I will live with Sirius Black after graduating from Hogwarts. Hermione smiled. It's really a simple idea. Harry couldn't help but look at the goddess beside him again. Her perfect figure, perfect face, perfect temperament. What about you, Hermione? What do you want to do in the future? Hermione replied, if nothing unexpected happens, I should work in the Ministry of Magic in the future. Of course, this is Hermione in the original play. As for Hermione here, she doesn't know if she will have the opportunity to travel back home. She has been away from home for too long, and she has forgotten what her hometown looks like. Once Hermione's biggest wish was to go home, but now, the long river of time seems to have healed everything. If there is a chance, she still wants to go home once. Of course, if not, then forget it. Suddenly, Hermione stepped on something. If she was unlucky, she should have stepped on dog shit. Of course, Miss Hermione has always had good luck. Hermione suddenly squatted down. She could actually use magic to levitate the things she stepped on, but Hermione felt that there was no need to pretend like that. She was not the savior of Marvel. In Hogwarts, even a little magician could be simpler. Hermione, what's wrong with you? Harry thought Hermione was a girl with a stomachache. After all, the body structure of girls is different from that of boys, and there are always a few days a month. Hermione smiled and explained, I seem to have picked up a wallet. Not seem, but really picked up a wallet. Hermione's luck in picking up money while walking still exists. I'll open it to see whose wallet it is. It shouldn't be Professor Snape's. Professor Snape is an old single dog, and he doesn't have a little lover, so it is naturally unlikely that he would leave his wallet in such a place. It's the wallet of Barty Crouch from the Ministry of Magic. There's his business card and a lot of money in it. Harry looked at it and said, then let's find him quickly and return the wallet to him. It's still impossible to return it. There are too many things Harry doesn't understand. If Hermione doesn't take the good things she picked up when she was a child home, they will magically appear in her clothes pocket the next day. This is not something she can control. Even if Hermione returns this wallet, it will appear in Hermione's clothes pocket the next day. It's too scary. It's better not to return it at all. What I picked up is mine. I remember that I seem to have seen Barty crouch. He should be in front. Harry recalled that before Harry looked for Hermione, he met Barty Crouch, but the other party looked hurried and obviously didn't notice Harry. Hermione didn't refuse. Although she had guessed what would happen next, she didn't stop that thing from happening. After all, Hermione couldn't take care of everything. She couldn't take care of it. There is a system task, or she really wants to save. She will extend a hand of salvation. Otherwise, Hermione will not meddle in other people's business. Someone who doesn't hate pets but is too lazy to even keep them. You expect her to take the initiative to save the world. Isn't that contradictory? Oh my God. As expected, when Harry saw the tragedy, he was completely stunned. In the haystack in front of him, old Barty Crouch was lying there stiffly. His hat flew far away, his face was pale, and he obviously had lost his breath and had been dead for a long time. How could this happen? Barty Crouch, a living big shot, who came to represent the Ministry of Magic and co-host the Triwizard Tournament with the 3 major magic principles, was killed in the grove. Especially Harry. His inner shock was indescribable. He just saw this old Barty. Hermione also picked up his wallet, but this result was really unpredictable. Hermione acted very calmly. She said to Harry, "I'll stay here. Harry, you go and call someone over." Harry did not question Hermione's words, and immediately set off and left quickly. Although Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is very dangerous, it is still rare for a big shot to die in the woods. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439 Harry and Hermione. Hermione stayed here, looking at Barty Crouch's body. If this was a zombie horror movie, the body would probably be mutated. For someone who just died, it's not right to be so disrespectful, but Hermione really had no feelings for old Barty's death. It's not that Barty Crouch was a wicked man, but he died at the hands of his useless son, which is at most a pity. Harry soon brought a large number of people, some of whom were very curious about Harry Potter's identity and why he was always at the scene of the first crime. Fortunately, no one would suspect Harry of old Barty's death this time, including the silent headmaster Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall. They all knew that it was the work of the Death Eaters, or maybe the terrified Voldemort back then is back again. Hermione did not trigger any new task options at the scene. Perhaps this was a little respect for the dead. Barty Crouch's presence is not high in the movie, but in the eyes of Principal Dumbledore and various Wizarding World bigwigs, this is definitely not a small matter. The Minister of Magic came that night. The incident of Barty Crouch's death was quickly unfolding, and at the same time, a heated discussion was taking place in Dumbledore's office. The Triwizard Tournament must be terminated immediately and cannot continue. Barty Crouch was killed silently under his nose. Hogwarts is too dangerous. If the competition continues and multiple students are killed, Principal Dumbledore will be blamed. But the Minister of Magic has a different view. He believes that the more times like this, the more we cannot give up the competition. First of all, it is a problem related to the reputation of the 3 major magic schools and the Ministry of Magic. Secondly, if the competition is terminated just because of this, it will also make the outside world feel that the Ministry of Magic is particularly unskilled. For the sake of the overall situation, the Triwizard Tournament must not be terminated. Dumbledore sat back in his chair helplessly. At the beginning of the Triwizard Tournament, Dumbledore would invite Barty Crouch to make the decision for some options that would offend people. But now, he never expected that the first person to die would be Barty Crouch. Dumbledore certainly didn't worry about his own death. He was already old and had nothing to be afraid of. He was just afraid that he would have to bear endless infamy before he died. For a legendary wizard like Dumbledore, reputation is often more important than life and money. The final discussion results came out, And the Triwizard Tournament continued, the third game, the finals. On Harry Potter's side, Ron learned that Harry and Hermione were together during the day, and he was a little jealous and said, "What are you doing in the grove together during the day?" Although Ron knew that his fantasy was unlikely, he still couldn't control his brain. Hermione replied, "It's just a chat." Hearing the goddess answer first, Ron didn't know what to say for a while. If it were just him and Harry, he would definitely continue to ask. At this time, a strange classmate came and told Harry that Dumbledore wanted to see him for something. Of course, if possible, Hermione could go with him. After all, in the original play, only Harry encountered such a thing, not Hermione. But here, Hermione was there, and it was normal for her to go with him and be questioned by Dumbledore. Hermione thought about it and went with him. If she didn't go, people would suspect that she had done something and felt guilty. Ron thought about it and said, "I'll go too." But he was quickly stopped by the visitor. Principal Dumbledore only called Harry and Ms. Granger. Ron was so embarrassed, but there was no way, because he was the second male instead of the first male. Harry and Hermione walked side by side again. Hermione was the savior in Marvel, and usually no one would talk to her. Now between her and Harry, others would not think that she was a high god. Hermione could naturally speak freely. Nervous? He was called in for a talk because of a murder case. Although Harry had successfully eliminated the evil defense against the dark arts professor by using a protective spell on his body in his first year, the enemy's body turned into dust that time, which was obviously different from this time. "It's okay. I just can't figure out who killed Director Barty Crouch." Harry seemed to want to solve the case. Hermione told him, "The answer may not be known until the end of the Triwizard Tournament." Harry had been with Hermione for a long time, and he obviously had some foresight. He asked, "After this happened, will the competition continue?" "I don't know, but it is likely to continue." Hermione analyzed rationally, "If the competition is stopped at this time, will it make more people realize that Barty Crouch's death is unusual?" How to make the news of the accident fade away is also something that the Minister of Magic needs to consider. Harry looked at the beautiful Hermione and sighed. "Hermione, you are still smart." Hermione did not continue to answer because the two had already arrived. Usually, Harry Potter was called to the office of Headmaster Dumbledore, but this time Hermione also came. In the past, she was weak, so she would definitely want to keep a low profile and hide whenever possible. Now that Hermione is strong, she, who has always been cautious, also wants to know some specific results. There was no one in Dumbledore's office. One year, Harry saw the phoenix rising from the ashes in Dumbledore's office. This year, he saw the special luminous substance. Hermione, who loves food, saw a bowl of candies. Hermione urged, "Harry, go get one." Harry was certainly not in the mood to eat candies at this time, but since it was the goddess Hermione's words, Harry would still listen. Even if he didn't eat it, Harry could give it to Ms. Hermione. But then an unexpected scene happened. The candies that were originally quiet seemed to come alive when Harry approached, jumping one after another, and trying to bite Harry's fingers with their teeth and claws. This weird scene scared Harry. Hermione smiled. Harry suspected that Hermione had known this would happen, so she let Harry take action. Miss Hermione would not eat such horrible candy, so Harry stopped taking it. "What is this?" Harry saw that Hermione was no longer interested in the candy, but came to the glowing basin. "This is the pensieve," Hermione explained. "Dumbledore uses magic to store his many memories and keeps them here. When he can't remember them one day, he will come here to look at them." It sounds mysterious, but it is actually similar to the videotapes in the Muggle world. Harry immediately showed an enlightened look and said, "So that's why Headmaster Dumbledore often stands here thinking about something." Human thinking and various decisions are carefully compared by the brain. Harry asked, "What should we do now?" Hermione replied, "We can find a special memory that Dumbledore stored here while he is away. It may be helpful for us to understand Barty Crouch's death." Chapter 440 Dumbledore's Pensieve. Bad girls are lovable, and the more honest boys are, the more they like bad girls with principles. Bad girls should have principles. For example, the bad part is not the messy relationship between men and women, but the lifestyle, hobbies, and funny personality. In this way, a lively, cute and lovable girl appears. Dumbledore must have a lot of troubles, so he put a pensieve in his office. Harry is quite considerate. Probably, Hermione said perfunctorily. She looked at the dialogue box that popped up in front of her. Option 1. Press Harry's head into the pensieve, let him wash his hair in it, and blow dry his hair to make a killer style. Complete the task to reward exclusive attribute, hairdressing, +1. Option 2. Find the memory of the hearing trial of Barty Crouch Jr., the son of Barty Sr., in the pensieve, and take Harry into that memory together. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, magic, +1. Option 3. Do something a bad kid should do. Add some dyes to Dumbledore's pensieve, such as dichlorvos, paraquat, etc., and pour all the annoying candies in it and stir it. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, villain charm, +1. Very interesting 3 options. Maybe she has been a serious person for too long. Hermione really wants to try option 1 and option 3. It must be wonderful to do bad things secretly. It's a pity. Miss Hermione Granger still cares about her reputation and ladylike image. Such behavior that seriously damages her image should be avoided. Beauty. If you want to have a temperament that everyone loves, you must abandon all vulgar tastes. This is the first time Hermione has seen something like a pensieve. Although its principle is similar to that of a videotape, it still looks much more magical. Ordinary wizards, such as Harry, may still need luck, or Dumbledore secretly adjusts it and waits for Harry to fall into the trap. However, Hermione, who was very powerful, made up for this perfectly. Her magic entered the pensieve. Among the large number of memories, she quickly found the one needed for the task. Harry, let's go in. Harry didn't react at all. What did Hermione mean by this? However, the next moment, a familiar feeling immediately surrounded him and brought him and Hermione into that memory world at the same time. Harry had experienced this situation in Voldemort's diary before. At that time, his consciousness was brought into the situation that Voldemort saw that year. Dumbledore's magic power was more perfect. Being in Dumbledore's memory, the scenes around him were vivid. Harry thought he had really traveled through time. Through the portkey, he traveled to a serious hearing. The person being tried was actually the young Igor Karkaroff. He is now the headmaster of Durmstrang School of Magic, but he used to be a Death Eater. Now it is his trial. This man is very spineless. If you threaten him casually, he will be angry. It was because of his good performance that he had the opportunity to get out of Azkaban, and finally became the headmaster of Durmstrang School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. If he had been unyielding and said nothing during his trial, he might still be in Azkaban with free food and lodging. Harry came to this memory and sat next to Dumbledore, while Hermione was amazing. Hermione flew directly in the air. Headmaster Dumbledore, Hermione. Harry was still very worried because this place was too real, but Dumbledore ignored Harry at all, as if Harry didn't exist. It wasn't until the body of another person next to him directly penetrated Harry that Harry realized that everything around him was not real, just like a holographic projection. Hermione watched the show quietly, and at the same time, she, who loved learning, was thinking about what she could learn from such a holographic projection. Barty Crouch, as the presiding judge of this hearing, he gave a serious rebuke and told all the crimes of Igor Karkaroff as a Death Eater, and promised that as long as Igor Karkaroff confessed the other accomplices honestly, his crime could be mitigated. Igor Karkaroff did not hesitate at all and immediately confessed more than 20 accomplices on the spot. Most people at the hearing were ashamed of him. Although Death Eaters are the enemies of the entire wizarding world, this Igor Karkaroff is too spineless. Such a coward. Is he worthy of being a Death Eater? However, the presiding judge Barty Crouch said seriously, most of the names you provided have been investigated by our Ministry of Magic and arrested and imprisoned. Therefore, there is no value and your sentence cannot be reduced. In other words, although Igor Karkaroff confessed and was given leniency, the Ministry of Magic knew the information he provided, so there was no way to reduce his sentence and he had to be imprisoned. Igor Karkaroff was anxious. He was about to be arrested and enjoyed in Azkaban. He was really scared. In this case, let's fight to the death. Wait a minute. I know one more, a Death Eater that none of you here know about. He is the main planner of many murders. As soon as these words were spoken, the whole audience fell silent, including Harry and Hermione, who came here through Dumbledore's memory. Even though Goddess Hermione already knew the result, the process was still quite exciting. Then tell me about it. Barty Crouch lost confidence in this death-fearing Igor Karkaroff. However, this Igor Karkaroff pointed at a young and handsome man in the hearing seat. Little Barty Crouch, you all don't know, he is also a Death Eater, and he is in a high position among the Death Eaters. The whole audience was in an uproar instantly. The young and energetic Barty Crouch did not make any excuses or refutes, but roared with a hideous face on the spot. That's right, I am a Death Eater. You all deserve to die. Only Lord Voldemort is the greatest existence. You are not worthy of judging me. Barty Crouch Jr. is obviously Voldemort's most loyal follower. Barty Crouch, who had just been speaking righteously, was stunned at this moment, and his palms were shaking uncontrollably. He had been the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement for his entire life, but the biggest criminal was actually his own son. There is nothing more ironic in the world than this. At this time, Harry was also stunned. He had not paid attention to the young Barty Crouch in the hearing room just now. Now that Barty Crouch was confessed by the death-fearing Igor Karkaroff, Harry noticed this unrepentant young man. Harry was not shocked by the bizarreness of this story, nor was he shocked by Barty Crouch's crazy expression. What shocked Harry was that he had actually seen this Barty Crouch. That's right, in Harry's nightmare. It was this Barty Crouch who served Voldemort and brutally killed the landlord. It was terrible. This Barty Crouch was cruel and ruthless, serving Voldemort and helping him to do evil. Come on, catch me. You guys deserve to die. Barty Crouch Jr. was caught, but he was still extremely arrogant. Compared with that spineless Igor Karkaroff, it was obvious that Barty Crouch Jr. was more like a real Death Eater. Chapter 441 Goosebumps. Barty Crouch was so fierce that the timid wizards didn't even dare to look him in the eye. Barty was caught, but he still had this kind of momentum, which was extraordinary. Hermione and Harry finally came out of the pensieve. They had to admit that the experience just now was really impressive. Miss Hermione certainly completed the task perfectly. Harry looked back at the beautiful Hermione beside him and asked, Hermione, what do you want to do by letting me see that memory of Headmaster Dumbledore just now? Based on Harry's understanding of Hermione, she would definitely not do something without reason. Harry would ask this question, and Hermione naturally had a countermeasure to answer. Harry, don't you think that there must be something strange about the death of old Barty Crouch? So if we go back to Dumbledore's memory of him, maybe we can solve this mystery. Faced with Hermione's explanation, Harry nodded. At this time, Dumbledore, who came late, appeared. He was as old as ever, but compared to his old age before, he was more sad now. Even as a legendary wizard, there will be a day when he runs out of energy. Life is really something that makes people feel very emotional. What are you doing here? Dumbledore's voice lacked the kindness of the past. It was obvious that his recent troubles made him not in the mood. Didn't you ask us to come? Harry explained. Dumbledore slapped his head and seemed to have just remembered. What did you see and hear just now? Dumbledore seemed to be changing the subject, or maybe he was really more concerned about what Harry and Hermione saw just now. After all, in Hogwarts, the two student saviors that he valued most were Harry and Hermione, especially the former. As for the latter, Hermione, on the one hand, she was too low-key, and on the other hand, she only showed more and more prominent in the later period. Harry saw that although Dumbledore's face lacked the kindness of the past, he did not mean to blame him, so he explained, we saw Barty Crouch Jr. Dumbledore immediately showed an expression of as expected. This Harry Potter is very interesting. As long as he has participated in the place, the story can always find the answer at the end. Dumbledore was very shocked and confused about the death of Barty Crouch Sr., and he always felt that he had overlooked something. With no other options, he found Harry. Hermione happened to be at the scene of the crime, so she was called over together. As the headmaster, Dumbledore couldn't directly ask Harry what he thought about the death of Barty Crouch Sr. But Harry was not an ordinary person, and he answered first. Regarding Barty Crouch Jr., who appeared in the pensieve, I also saw him in my dream. Harry's words gave Dumbledore goosebumps. Where? Harry was surprised that he would dream about Barty Crouch Jr., because since Barty Crouch Jr. was found guilty at the hearing, he had been arrested in Azkaban. Logically speaking, Harry Potter would not have any intersection with Barty Crouch Jr. in his life, let alone dream about him. In the dream, Barty Crouch Jr. was beside Voldemort. Because the dream was just a fragment, Harry couldn't explain the reason. He just asked, "It was just a dream, it's not real, right? You dream about it at night." Generally speaking, the existence in dreams should not be taken seriously. Dumbledore said seriously, "Barty Crouch Jr. is still in Azkaban. Harry, no matter whether your dream is true or not, you should be more careful in the future. I don't want anyone else to die." Harry nodded. From beginning to end, Dumbledore did not talk to Hermione. Maybe she was just a bystander. Forget it. It doesn't matter. But Miss Hermione's system popped up a dialogue box. Option 1. Tell Dumbledore the truth about Barty Crouch Jr. is still alive and ran away from Azkaban to cause trouble to the world. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Being confused by the authorities is not an excuse. Dumbledore is so stupid that he said something completely wrong, misleading him and making it even harder for him to find the right answer. Completing the task rewards exclusive attribute, villain, +1. Option 3. Again, it has nothing to do with me. Say nothing. Completing the task rewards basic attribute +1. For Ms. Hermione, the answer to these three options is obvious. Hermione naturally said nothing and left Dumbledore's office with Harry. After coming out, Harry said to Hermione, "Principal Dumbledore looks very sad. It seems that the death of old Barty Claw has dealt a great blow to him." Hermione replied, "Old Barty Claw and Dumbledore are figures of the same era. Even if they are not good friends, they must meet often because of their work relationship." Dumbledore must have anticipated that some students would be in danger, but he never thought that old Barty Claw would die strangely. Harry couldn't help but sigh. Hogwarts is really too dangerous. Hermione smiled meaningfully and said, "When has our school been safe?" This sentence sounds like a joke, but what Hermione said is undoubtedly the truth. Harry has no way to refute this. I thought nothing would happen today after meeting Dumbledore. Miss Hermione also thought she would start traveling through the Marvel world again. However, both Harry and Hermione were wrong. Perhaps the system also felt that Hermione would be easily confused if she kept running back and forth between the two worlds, and the stories on both sides would be disconnected and incomplete. So after Hermione returned to Hogwarts this time, the system did not immediately prompt Hermione to travel through Marvel to become the savior. In a seemingly inconspicuous room in the corridor of the castle, two grown men were arguing. The two people arguing were familiar faces. One was Professor Snape, an old actor at Hogwarts, and the other was Igor Karkaroff, who was a Death Eater when he was young and had just met in Dumbledore's pensieve. The content of the quarrel between the two was naturally related to old Barty Claw. Both of them suspected that they had a relationship with each other, because when he was young, Professor Snape was also a Death Eater for a period of time. But unlike Igor Karkaroff, Headmaster Dumbledore came forward to guarantee that Professor Snape was a spy he had planted. This prevented Professor Snape from enjoying the fate of being judged like Igor Karkaroff. The two quarreled with the door open, and it seemed that they did not expect that there would be students here at this time. Coincidentally, Miss Hermione Granger was not an ordinary person. She just took Harry on this road and just happened to encounter the two old men quarreling. Igor Karkaroff snorted coldly when he was bumped by the students, and left with his sleeves waving. Now Igor Karkaroff is obviously doing better than Professor Snape. Snape is still a professor, while Igor Karkaroff is already the principal of another magic academy. Therefore, Igor Karkaroff's face is naturally more valuable than Professor Snape. Harry was also embarrassed. When he lowered his head and turned to leave as if he had seen nothing, he was stopped by Professor Snape. "Harry Potter, wait a moment." Chapter 442, Peerless Beauty. After so many years of studying at Hogwarts, Harry never had a good impression of Professor Snape. Similarly, Professor Snape was the same to Harry. In Professor Snape's eyes, Harry was his father when he was young, which was extremely annoying. But Harry's eyes looked like his mother's, which made Professor Snape very conflicted. Harry knew that Professor Snape must have something bad to say when he called him. What for? Professor Snape came over directly, and he didn't care at all that there was a peerless beauty Miss Hermione Granger beside him. I recently discovered that someone stole my gillweed and my polyjuice potion ingredients. Harry felt that Professor Snape was targeting him, so he retorted, "It's not me." He did use the gillweed in the second game of the Triwizard Tournament, but it was given to him by a classmate, and it had nothing to do with the gillweed that Professor Snape lost. Professor Snape questioned, "If I knew that someone was using the transfiguration potion to do bad things, I would definitely not let him go." After that, he pushed Harry away rudely. Professor Snape is known as the most hated and terrifying professor in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and there is a reason for that. After Harry left Professor Snape's hut, he complained to Hermione beside him, "This Professor Snape always likes to make trouble for me. I don't know about the fish gilly grass, but the ingredients for the polyjuice potion shouldn't be that difficult to collect. Why should I steal from him?" "That's right, as a wizard, it shouldn't be difficult to collect some ingredients." "Why did he catch Professor Snape alone to steal?" Hermione replied, "Maybe the thief has a grudge against Professor Snape." Hermione's answer made Harry couldn't help but smile. "If you explain it this way, it seems to be a reason. Professor Snape is not popular, so it's understandable that others want to mess with him." Hermione and Harry separated, and Hermione returned to her dormitory. "After being a savior in Marvel for too long, I found that I haven't been a normal person to rest and sleep for a long time." The system really didn't bother Hermione this time, and didn't issue a mission to travel through Marvel. The next few days in Hogwarts were very peaceful. However, Hermione was not idle. She hardly attended classes now. Even for important classes, she would use the time converter to punch in and perfunctorily. Most of her time, except for the optional tasks released by the system, she spent time in the magic laboratory provided by Professor McGonagall. She was studying new magic. Every time she overcame a difficulty, Hermione would be happy from the bottom of her heart, because these were all real progress. Time soon came to the last level of the Triwizard Tournament, and it was this level that would determine who would be the final champion. The competition venue was changed to land this time. The maze was made of hedges covering an extremely large area, and the participating warriors were required to find the Triwizard Cup in it. It must be said that this last level had some luck. In the original drama and movie, there was no one with great luck. If Miss Hermione participated, she would probably be able to pick up the trophy while walking, and other contestants would not have to compete at all. The maze is very large, and the beautiful Hermione Granger, who is always cautious in doing things, had already explored the map here before the competition. Now, even if Hermione closed her eyes, she could walk out of this huge maze. This is the benefit of doing homework in advance. Although Hermione is not a warrior participating in the competition, she knows that with such a lively time today, the system option tasks are definitely indispensable. In order to ensure that she can complete the tasks without any mistakes, the smart Hermione naturally prepared in advance. At present, her accumulated physical attribute points are Magic plus 95, Health plus 82, Low-key plus 70, Agility plus 80, Defense plus 79, Strength plus 75, Stealth plus 72, Pretty plus 9, Charm plus 9, Figure plus 10, Skin plus 9, Wisdom plus 9, Gentleness plus 1, Soul plus 1, Optimism plus 1, Teasing plus 2, Good Guy plus 1, Painter plus 1, Performance plus 1, Decisiveness plus 1, Silence plus 1, Quietness plus 1, Professionalism plus 1, Courage plus 1, Luck plus 1, Casualness plus 1, Beauty plus 1, Leisure plus 2. It must be said that Miss Hermione's important basic attribute points are added very evenly. Beauty, figure, charm, etc., are limited. It is impossible to add as much as other attributes. However, for Miss Hermione, who is naturally beautiful and breathtakingly beautiful, she is a beautiful jade. She only needs a little processing to be natural. There is no need to add too much. As for the messy points at the end, they are all awarded by the exclusive attributes when completing tasks. They are all dispensable attribute points. After adding, there is no way to reduce points, so just keep them. Hogwarts is worthy of being a 1,000-year-old magic school. It is very good at adjusting the atmosphere. Even though old Barty Claw had just died not long ago and his body was still warm, the Minister of Magic came in person today and presided over the school with Principal Dumbledore. Before the opening, there was a dance composed of girls, which made the atmosphere very lively. Many boys looked at the dancing beauties and commented on them. The girls, on the other hand, focused their eyes on the warriors of the Strawwizard tournament. The first to go on stage was naturally Victor Crumb, who had the highest voice. Next was Cedric Diggory, then Harry Potter. The last was Fleur Delacour. Fleur Delacour was the only female contestant. Even though she had performed very bravely, she was still far behind those big and strong male wizards, especially in the last round. When she rescued the hostages from the mermaids in the Black Lake, she performed the worst and basically failed to complete the task. But in line with the principle of friendship first and competition second, she could still participate in the last game. However, those with higher scores would enter the maze first to search for the trophy. Fleur Delacour's result was of course the last. After a few days of rest, her condition improved a lot, but looking closely at her eyes, it was clear that she had almost no hope of winning the trophy. She came here today only as a participant. Hermione was not a contestant. She sat in the audience. Although she was 70 points low-key, it still could not hide her stunning beauty. There are still many young boys who can't help but look at Ms. Hermione. Even if it's just one glance, they will feel amazed and their heartbeats will accelerate. Hermione naturally doesn't care about those admirers. Her system is very busy today. The transparent pop-up window in front of her releases the latest option tasks. Option 1. Fleur Delacour looks so pitiful. As a girl, we have to help her and make her the final champion. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, help, +1. Option 2. We still have to help Harry. After all, we are classmates and friends. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, wise, +1. Option 3. The cat of the janitor Filch looks hungry. Feed her a box of canned herrings. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Canned herrings. This is a good thing, known as a biological weapon. People who like to eat it think it's delicious. People who don't like it will vomit and lose 5 pounds in 3 days if they smell it. Although it's a bit of a spoof, Hermione still thinks the reward of option 3 is the most valuable. Working for the system, of course, you do what makes more money. Chapter 443 Cats and Canned Herrings. Throughout the game, the janitor Filch was very involved. While the headmaster Dumbledore was speaking, Filch had already fired his cannon, and his cannon shot officially marked the start of the third game. Dumbledore had no choice but to be speechless about this situation. Who made Filch, the janitor of Hogwarts, such a person? In the first game, he fired his cannon in advance. Filch didn't think he had done anything wrong. He just didn't cooperate well with the headmaster Dumbledore. Yes, that's all. However, when he finished his work and turned around, a scene that Filch would never forget suddenly appeared. He saw that the only cat that he treated as a relative was eating a box of cats at this moment. How should he describe the taste? It was like the stinkiest fish in history. Yes, that's how it should be described. The biggest difference between humans and animals was clearly distinguished at this moment. The taste that humans, even as wizards, could hardly accept became delicious in the mouth of Filch's cat. It can be seen from the state of the cat eating with relish. Miss Hermione thought that this task would be a little difficult. After all, Filch's cat is quite famous in Hogwarts. It is not easy to let it eat such smelly fish. Even Hermione has thought of Plan B, that is, when the cat does not eat, and even has to cover it with digging soil. Hermione uses powerful magic to block the cat's sense of smell, making it mistakenly think that the canned herrings is a rare delicacy in the world. As for why the beautiful Miss Hermione Granger has canned herrings, this question is not a problem at all. With the existence of the funny system, anything can happen. I never expected that Filch's cat has such a heavy taste. The cat actually likes canned herrings very much. It ate it directly in public. Congratulations on completing the option 3 task. Reward basic attribute +1. After completing the task, Miss Hermione Granger immediately left here, pretending to be a qualified audience, admiring Filch's cat eating the canned herrings that people can't ignore. "Oh my God, Mrs. Norris, what are you doing?" Filch's expression at this moment was more uncomfortable than eating garlic with ice cubes, especially the bad smell, and the eyes of the people around him with different shock and disgust. "Don't eat it. Which bastard gave this to my Mrs. Norris to eat?" Filch was complaining, but the culprit, Miss Hermione, always did things secretly, so naturally no one would notice that it was her who did it. In the end, Filch could only endure the disgusting smell all over his cat and quickly escape from this place. He could endure other people's strange looks, but his cat, Mrs. Norris, couldn't. He couldn't let his cat suffer that unfair treatment. Filch's departure was seen by Mad Eye Moody. I don't know if it was a prank by that naughty student. It was quite interesting, but this smell was really hard to accept. The tense moment is about to come. Mad Eye Moody licked his lips excitedly. He came to Hogwarts to teach for so long, just for what is about to happen next. How exciting! Hermione's expression was indifferent. She gradually retreated to the back of the audience. Anyway, even if she sat in the highest place in the audience, she couldn't see the situation in the maze. In the end, whoever took out the goblet of fire from the inside would be the final winner. Hermione began to hide, and then entered the huge maze with the warriors of the Triwizard Tournament. The plants in the maze made people feel depressed. Fortunately, Hermione was different from other contestants. She could fly above the maze, which would feel much better. The first to enter the maze was Victor Krum, the contestant with the highest appeal. He was full of muscles and looked very impressive. Then came Harry and Cedric Diggory. Finally, it was Fleur Delacour. The one who entered the maze first must have a better chance of finding the trophy inside. Krum thought so at first, but then he didn't think so. The maze was so big that he could only walk on the ground. The special plants blocked his sight, which made people feel very depressed. If a fire burns down the place, it will be much easier to find. Although Krum has strong limbs, he also has a brain. Since conventional operations are difficult to succeed, let's start to take unconventional methods. We have worked so hard this year, and we can't lose the game at the last minute. Miss Hermione Granger, who was flying in the air invisibly, quickly locked onto Krum in the maze below. The system seemed to detect Hermione Granger's inner thoughts, and immediately a pop-up window appeared with task options. Option 1. Now take out the rocket launcher from the space ring, aim at Krum below, and blast him directly. Complete the task and get 10 rockets as rewards. Option 2. Krum will definitely sneak attack other players next, and we can't let him succeed. Use magic to stop him. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, Savior, +1. Option 3. I'm just here to watch the show. Don't worry about me. You guys play your own games. Complete the task and get the basic attribute +1. When Hermione saw task requirement 1, she was stunned, because the idea of using a rocket launcher to hit Krum was really a flash of thought in her mind. But when the mind is too active, it is inevitable that all kinds of strange ideas will come up. After such a strange idea comes up, Hermione will definitely not execute it. Now that it is directly used as an option task by the system, Miss Hermione will of course laugh it off. You can't really carry a bazooka and bomb the Maze Warrior contestants. That's too exciting. Option 2 is quite righteous, and it rewards Savior, +1, which is not bad. But when installing the pen, Hermione wants to be the savior, but usually, she doesn't want to be a savior for everything, especially since she is afraid of trouble and cautious. So, option 3 is more suitable for her and simple. So, under the situation that Miss Hermione can only watch but not take action, the fourth contestant Fleur Delacour has already entered the maze amid the cheers of the alumni. Fleur Delacour never dreamed that she was not attacked by the maze mechanism, but was attacked by Krum, who is also a warrior contestant. That's right, in order to win the trophy, Krum's strategy is to defeat his competitors. In that case, The trophy can only be his. Why do we need fair competition? There is no fair competition in the Triwizard Tournament. Whoever laughs last is the champion. Crumb knocked down his opponent without harming his competitor's life. This is undoubtedly the best way, which is much better than searching in the vast maze like a headless fly by luck. As a bystander, Hermione felt that there was nothing wrong with Crumb's approach. The strong should not use unpredictable means. In a world where the weak are preyed upon by the strong, people like Fleur Delacour are destined to be eliminated. Sure enough, after Fleur Delacour entered the maze, she wanted to look for the trophy, but she was ambushed by the lurking Crumb and hit with one shot. Chapter 444, The Sage's Protection. Actually, Fleur Delacour is pretty and tall, and is a beauty that most men like, and Crumb, a rude man, showed no mercy to women for the final victory. As a competitor, he is an enemy, and there is nothing to say. He is a man who does great things. After Fleur Delacour was attacked by Crumb, the maze bushes around her immediately seemed to come alive, and they directly wrapped around Fleur Delacour and wrapped her up. When Fleur Delacour was about to be pulled into the soil as fertilizer, Harry Potter, who was supposed to enter the maze in advance, suddenly appeared here. It is estimated that Harry got dizzy in the maze and turned back. When he saw Crumb leave quickly after attacking Fleur Delacour, Harry did not dare to neglect it and immediately took out his wand for defense. At the same time, he rushed to Fleur Delacour to prevent the bushes from pulling Fleur's body into the soil as fertilizer. He also raised his wand and fired fireworks to ask for help. Fireworks bloomed in the sky above the maze, and the sky was very dark, as if foreshadowing something terrible was about to happen. The people outside and the contestants in the maze were all shocked. They didn't expect that a warrior contestant had been eliminated so soon. You can imagine how cruel the third game of the Triwizard Tournament was. Mad-Eye Moody outside continued to take out his thing that looked like a small wine bottle, tilted his head and took a sip. It was obviously very unpalatable, and his expression was a little grinning, but no one outside paid attention to him, not even Professor Dumbledore. Mad-Eye Moody was very enthusiastic in his heart. He was looking forward to the last moment, and even prayed that Harry Potter could burst out with the protagonist's aura and successfully get the trophy. Don't be like Fleur Delacour, who was killed before she started. Hermione was hidden in the sky above the maze, and it was relatively easy to find the trophy from top to bottom. After all, the trophy was not hidden, and the trophy didn't have long legs to move quickly. When Hermione's beautiful eyes found the trophy, a transparent multiple-choice question popped up in front of her. Option 1. Touch the trophy and teleport to the resurrection place carefully prepared by Voldemort, and have a life-and-death duel with Voldemort. Completion reward basic attribute +3. Option 2. Capture Professor Snape and have him and the trophy teleport to see Voldemort. Completion reward basic attribute +2. Option 3. Do whatever. Completion reward, protection of the sage. 1. These three options are indeed extraordinary, and the rewards are unprecedentedly generous. Basic attribute +3. This seems to be rarely seen in Miss Hermione's impression, and the attribute point rewards of the system are usually too stingy. Hermione just thinks that the attribute point rewards are stingy, and does not think that the equipment and weapon rewards are bad. On the contrary, Advanced Magic Book, Tathagata Palm, Invisibility Cloak, Magneto Bracelet, etc. are all very powerful, and are also important abilities for Hermione to become the savior of Marvel. However, option 1 is a bit difficult, not because Hermione is afraid of Voldemort. When she first came here, Hermione was really afraid of Voldemort. To put it bluntly, she was afraid of death. Now, Hermione doesn't think Voldemort will be her opponent, but it's not the right time to kill Voldemort. Besides, Voldemort's strength is not very high, but he is very tough. If he doesn't destroy all his Horcruxes, he will come back again. Even if Hermione kills him now, it will not help. Instead, it will expose herself, and Voldemort, who will be resurrected in the future, will take revenge on her. Never underestimate any villain. This is the most important concept for Hermione to live peacefully. You can despise the enemy, but you must never underestimate the enemy. so option 1 is naturally not possible. Option 2 rewards basic attributes plus 2, which looks good, but the task requirements are really a bit too spoof, catching Professor Snape and throwing him. It can indeed scare Voldemort, but it can't really solve the problem. Moreover, when Hermione saw the reward for option 3, this was the real eye-opening. Sage's protection, what a shocking reward. When Hermione got unknown omen, plus witch's cloak, she was already wondering what else would be in her 7-piece set as the mid-lane mage. Surprising, Sage's protection has already appeared. This is the resurrection armor. With this equipment, Hermione can be resurrected quickly even if she is suddenly attacked by death. Although her health is very low after resurrection, this is a real immortal equipment. Dream come true. Hermione has always been so cautious. To put it bluntly, isn't it because she is afraid of death? Now that she has Sage's protection, it is obvious that she can go out and have fun. Of course, with life-saving equipment, Hermione will definitely not go out and have fun. It's better to be safe than sorry. As a savior, Hermione does extraordinary things, so of course she can't have fun. But the thought that she can be resurrected with the help of Sage's protection makes people want to drool. Without doing anything, you can get a reward. Isn't it the same as giving it away for free? The joyful mood began to overflow in my heart. Anxiously waiting, time seemed to slow down at this moment, until Krum began to attack Cedric Diggory at the bottom of the maze. Miss Hermione's system finally gave a prompt. Congratulations on completing option 3. Reward, protection of the sage, 1 item. This moment is of course a happy one. Hermione immediately flew low, hiding in the depths of the maze where no one could see, and then couldn't wait to take out this protection of the sage. After Miss Hermione's rise, it has been a long time since she has been so excited about any ability or equipment. The appearance of this protection of the sage is almost exactly the same as in the game, and the feel is naturally good. After a careful inspection, Hermione was not disappointed. After wearing it, not only will you get plus 140 physical defense and plus 140 spell defense, but you will also be resurrected on the spot 2 seconds after death, and gain 10% of your health. It can only be triggered once in 24 hours a day. In other words, as long as Hermione always wears the protection of the sage, if she suddenly dies within 24 hours a day, she will get a chance to be resurrected on the spot. But after using it, there is no way to trigger it a second time within a day. In the game, it can be triggered twice in 1 round. Although the treasure in Miss Hermione's hand can only be successfully triggered once, it can be updated every day. In other words, if Miss Hermione Granger is bored, she will die once a day, and she can die 365 times in a year. In 10 years, she can die 3,650 times. Thinking about it this way, don't you think? Protection of the sage is pretty awesome. In any case, Hermione is still very happy with protection of the sage. She feels that she will be more confident when she goes out to fight the big villain in the future. Of course, the protection of the sage is a means of saving life in the last barrier. Of course, it will never be used casually in normal times, because it can only be resurrected once a day, and after resurrection, it only has 10% of the original blood volume. There are still many defects, so the secret of this protection of the sage must not be known to outsiders. There is another thing, because Hermione often wears the ominous sign as underwear, now adding a piece of sage's protection, it seems that there are still some too many clothes. But fortunately, the clothes are very comfortable to wear. I can accept it, but I am worried that if I wear 7 pieces of clothing at the same time, will I look ridiculous? After all, Hermione already has a witch cloak, which is so exaggerated that she only wears it when she is in a dangerous battle, or directly wears it under the invisibility cloak. Chapter 445 Alive. Most people have worn several pieces of clothing at the same time. It is difficult to wear thin clothes when going out in winter. Hermione is slightly different. She does it to save her life. In fact, according to her current ability, she doesn't need to do this, but in order to be safer, she doesn't mind wearing more clothes. Anyway, she doesn't fall in love, so anything is fine. The premise is to stay alive. To Hermione, staying alive is probably the most important thing. This is the instinct of living things. Live well. After wearing the newly acquired equipment, Protection of the Sage, Hermione became very proud, because not only did she have an extra life in one day, at the same time, she could also gain magic resistance and physical resistance bonuses. These defenses combined make Miss Hermione very tough even as a great wizard. Maybe an ordinary Muggle warrior would not bleed even if he chopped Hermione with all his strength. Of course, with Hermione's skills, the enemy would not be able to slash her at all. Deep in the maze, the battle continues. Krum may have realized that Harry Potter's protagonist halo was too big and too thick. If he rashly attacked such a strong fate, it might rebound on him in the end. So he attacked Cedric Diggory first. Cedric was still quite capable. He took out his wand and fought Krum evenly. Although it seemed fierce, both sides only used conventional magic. Curses that could kill instantly, such as the Unforgivable Curse, were not used. Hermione was also hesitant. She and Cedric Diggory were not particularly familiar with each other, but she knew the fate that Cedric would face next. The system seemed to have detected something, and immediately a dialog box popped up. Option 1. Help Krum defeat Cedric Diggory, and let Krum and Harry Potter touch the last trophy together. Complete the task and reward 1 gold trophy. Option 2. Wait and see, everything is destined, let it go. Complete the task and reward basic attribute +1. Option 3. An extraordinary option, let Mad Eye Moody's plan fail and let Voldemort make a new plan. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with the exclusive attribute, Wisdom +1. The 3 options actually represent 3 different results. Option 1. Help Krum defeat Cedric Diggory, so that Cedric will not touch the trophy with Harry Potter like in the original play, and he will not have to die. In the original play and movie, 2 people died in the Straw Wizard tournament. One was Barty Crouch from the Ministry of Magic, and the other was Cedric Diggory. Hermione was not familiar with Barty Crouch, so she did not save him. Cedric Diggory did say a few words to Hermione, but she did not have a deep impression of him. In fact, Hermione's social circle is still very small, and it is difficult for others to integrate into her life unless they are particularly deliberate. Of course, if you are too deliberate, such as the previous entanglement with Malfoy, the result will be counterproductive. Option 1. Hit Cedric Diggory, but it saved his life. However, the price is that Krum will die instead of him. Hermione felt similarly towards Cedric Diggory and Krum. She didn't feel much about who lived and who died, but if she had to choose, it would be a bit cruel. So, it doesn't matter if they die, but don't let her choose. Option 3 is obviously to prevent all of them from getting the trophy, and to completely destroy the plan of Mad Eye Moody, who has been lurking for a year. However, Voldemort will immediately start to formulate a new plan. The enemy villain will not give up. By then, Hermione will become a headless fly, with no clue at all, because if Voldemort reformulates a new conspiracy, it will be completely out of the original plot, and the memories that Miss Hermione brought with her when she traveled through time will be useless. Hermione is not a qualified savior. She is a selfish savior who only wants to live safely and stably. She has never thought of saving everyone. She is very smart. She has long seen through that the rules and order of the world are not perfect, and there will always be some flaws and regrets. So she chooses to God. Most of the time, he just looks coldly, watching everything in the world, watching the story go to extremes or destruction. They have always been there, but they don't take action easily, unless you are very lucky and meet a God, who is not experienced in the world. Obviously, Hermione is not like this. Although she looks pure and cute, she is a seasoned man in her heart. Sure enough, without Miss Hermione's interference, the battle in the maze developed as if it was set by the machine. Krum was afraid of Harry Potter's protagonist Halo and did not rush to attack him, but in the duel between Cedric Diggory and Krum, Harry took action. Cedric Diggory was an alumnus of the same school after all, and the relationship between the two was pretty good. When Harry met him, he was not as indifferent as Miss Hermione Granger and watched helplessly. He chose to take action and helped Cedric Diggory defeat Krum, but Harry would never have dreamed that his action indirectly killed Cedric Diggory. Cedric Diggory took a deep breath and thanked Harry in shock. Harry also had a wound on his face. Every semester, as long as there was a battle, Harry would inevitably get injured. But they are only minor injuries, Harry can bear it. You're welcome, Harry said. Let's go together. Cedric Diggory said, you saved me. The trophy should belong to you. Cedric Diggory was still a gentleman. He was very close to Harry now. If he chose to sneak attack Harry at this time, Harry would not be prepared at all. As long as Harry fell, he would be the only warrior in the whole maze, and the champion would definitely be him. But Harry just saved him. Cedric Diggory would not be so ruthless. Harry was also very generous. Compared with the trophy, he paid more attention to other things. The trophy belongs to both of us. Let's go together. Obviously there was no wind above the maze, but because the plants here have life, they dance wildly, and their roots would entangle people, so it seemed like a doomsday scene with a storm. Cedric Diggory looked into Harry Potter's eyes, and he wanted to refuse. But Harry's eyes were very sincere, not polite. Cedric Diggory was deeply moved. Harry Potter's temperament was so amazing. He nodded and said, okay, let's go together. So, Cedric Diggory and Harry rushed to the trophy together and reached out to touch it at the same time. However, what the two of them could never have imagined was that at the same time, an invisible beauty also came down from the sky. When she reached out to touch the trophy, a dazzling light immediately took away Harry, Cedric, and Miss Hermione Granger, who they did not notice. The scene was suddenly silent, and nothing was left. Here I have to complain about the security of Hogwarts. It was so bad, knowing that Voldemort would cause trouble in the Triwizard Tournament, and Barty Crouch of the Ministry of Magic died tragically in the Grove. Even so, there was not even a security guard near the trophy. Even if the security guards were powerless to stop Harry and Cedric's crossing, at least safety was taken seriously. Because Hogwarts has no reverence for life, it is natural that murders often occur. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446 Goodbye Voldemort. If Hermione were to be the headmaster of Hogwarts, she dared not say that she could do better than Dumbledore, but at least in terms of safety, it would definitely be better than now. Because Hermione was afraid of death, she had a strong respect for life. Mad-Eye Moody's control over space magic was not strong, and it was obvious that the trophy portkey he made was much worse than the one Hermione made herself. When Hermione was invisible and teleported with Harry and Cedric Diggory, she could clearly feel this. Excellent quality top-level portkeys should be very smooth when teleporting, without too much pulling and tearing. But when the portkey was teleported and opened by touching the trophy, the shoddy feeling made Hermione feel dizzy and motion sickness during the teleportation process. Too bad. Miss Hermione's current magic level is too high, and the gap between her and ordinary wizards in all aspects is reflected. Hermione's magic and the magic props she made are like works of art, noble and elegant, and very smooth and stable to use. The things made by other wizards are rough, the details are not perfect, and they may even freeze. Hermione was afraid. She decided not to use the door keys made by the villains in the future. If they got stuck in the cracks of time and space, they would be doomed. Although the probability of this is very small, the cautious Hermione still tried to avoid it. Be careful of any danger. It is better to be safe than sorry. Harry and Cedric Diggory would never dream that they were accidentally teleported when they thought they had won the trophy at the same time. The world here is dim, as if the sunlight cannot penetrate here. There are many scattered and crooked sculptures around, one of which is very scary, that is, the god of death holding a huge scythe. Is this a cemetery? How did we get to this place? Cedric Diggory still didn't understand. Although he was very good at Hogwarts, he was not as legendary as Harry Potter. He encountered many dangers and hardships since he was a child. Harry himself was different. In addition, he had been with Miss Hermione for a long time, so he immediately noticed the danger here. The trophy that had just been teleported was on the ground not far away. Cedric Diggory even wanted to observe this place to see if this was the championship celebration ceremony carefully prepared by Hogwarts. Harry immediately alerted, "Go back to the trophy? Let's go back immediately." Although Cedric Diggory was a little confused, his reason told him that Harry was right, and he immediately went to pick up the trophy that fell on the ground. At this moment, a familiar face appeared. It was Peter Pettigrew, the Wormtail. This man who looked like a big rat now looked much more powerful than when he was Ron's pet rat. He was very cruel, raising his wand and chanting the Avada Kedavra curse. Cedric Diggory couldn't dodge it, and his body stiffened and his face turned pale in an instant. He didn't even have time to scream, and he was gone. He got his lunch box directly. The scene of Cedric Diggory being killed instantly was very stimulating to Harry, and he was in shock. The handsome senior who was still alive and competing with him just now turned into a cold corpse. The body might still be warm, but after being hit by the killing curse, the whole person looked like he had just been lifted out of the freezer. "You killed him, Wormtail. You actually killed him." Harry couldn't believe that Peter Pettigrew had killed Cedric Diggory just like that. It was so sudden that people were not prepared at all. Wormtail smiled cruelly, revealing two rat-like teeth. "Harry Potter, we haven't seen each other for a long time." At this time, a childlike, but hoarse voice came anxiously and angrily. "Don't talk nonsense. Start quickly." Wormtail Pettigrew began to behave timidly again. "Yes, my master." "Master? Could it be Voldemort?" Harry immediately guessed something, and connected all the weird things in his mind. It turned out that the trophy was a trap. Anyone who touched the trophy would be automatically teleported to this cemetery. And Voldemort and his loyal servants had already been waiting here, guarding the graves and waiting for the rabbit. Harry knew that he couldn't just sit there and wait for death, even though normal people would think that Voldemort wanted to catch Harry, and it was unnecessary to wait until the final trophy of the Triwizard Tournament was delivered. Normally, even if Mad Eye Moody gave Harry a book or a cup of tea, as long as there was teleportation magic, Harry could still be brought here. However, Harry knew that this was not the time to complain about this. The inner thoughts of the Grey Devil Voldemort were difficult for others to guess and understand. Harry had to fight back to survive. Otherwise, Cedric Diggory, who was lying cold and dead not far away, would be his fate. Harry quickly took out his wand. But tonight, Peter Pettigrew was like a fast assassin. Before Harry could recite the spell, a beam of magic light hit Harry directly. This was not the killing curse, but the disarming curse. The power was so great that it not only knocked the wand out of Harry's hand, but also knocked Harry out, causing his internal organs to be hit, making Harry lose his fighting power for a while. This is the weakness of ordinary wizards. If it was Hermione, even if this attack hit her, at most she would lose a shield. Hermione has too many defenses. Catch him. Voldemort's voice was very urgent, for fear that the fat meat in his mouth would slip away. And Hermione, who had been watching the show, finally popped up a dialogue box in front of her. Option 1. Take the opportunity to kill Voldemort, but Voldemort will be resurrected in the future. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Use Time Converter to turn back time and save Cedric Diggory before he was killed. Complete the task to reward exclusive attribute, Save, +1. Option 3. Continue to watch the show. Don't care about the lives of the supporting characters, and only pay attention to the lives of the protagonists. Complete the task to reward exclusive attribute, Defense, +2. The three options this time made Hermione a little entangled. In fact, she really wanted to choose one, because Voldemort at this time looked dry and thin, and he would die if he was stepped on by a weak foot. But the system also said that even if Voldemort was killed at this time, he could still be resurrected as long as the Horcrux existed. Moreover, if Miss Hermione was exposed at that time, Voldemort would definitely be on guard against her, or even retaliate. Hermione had to think about it more. And option 2, saving people, was also a very just approach. When Cedric Diggory was killed just now, Hermione did not take action. Now that she could remedy the situation, Should she not take action? Hermione thought about it and still felt that she should not save him, because she really couldn't find a reason to convince herself to save him. After all, Hermione was not a saint, and she didn't want to impose too much responsibility on herself. Just like when she was the savior in Marvel, in the war, one death was a piece, one death was a pile. Corpses were everywhere. Hermione only saved innocent children in the war out of the bottom line of humanity. As for adults, let them die. The world is too chaotic, and she doesn't want to be a machine for saving people. There are not enough reasons to convince herself. She doesn't want to save. Chapter 447, Voldemort can't cook all in one pot. Say Hermione is cold-hearted or heartless. This is her truest thought. There is no need to blame yourself for this, because time will pass very quickly. When Harry was controlled by Peter Pettigrew, he took out a sharp knife to cut Harry's wrist and took out a drop of blood on the tip of the knife. Wormtail hurt Harry because of his rough action. Harry couldn't help but scream. Harry was not a robot, so the pain was naturally unbearable for him. There was a very large pot in front of Wormtail, which looked like a person could be boiled directly in it. Harry was of course very worried. This time Wormtail and Voldemort and others succeeded. Harry has become a piece of meat on the knife board and will be disposed of by Wormtail and Voldemort at will. This feeling is of course very bad, but Harry has no way out. He thought of a person in his heart like praying, and that person is undoubtedly Miss Hermione Granger, and this idea is getting stronger and stronger. Harry himself knows very well that it is very normal for him to think of Miss Hermione. In all these years at Hogwarts, their adventure group has almost always been together and never separated. This time should be no exception. However, when Harry saw the body of Cedric Diggory lying on the cold ground, he felt a mixture of sadness. In the past, no matter how great the danger was, he could get through it smoothly, but this time, it was obviously not possible. However, Harry could also think about Hermione. After all, Harry and Cedric were teleported here through the trophy, which itself represented the unknown. Therefore, he really had no reason to ask Hermione to find this place as quickly as he did. After thinking some things through in his heart, Harry suddenly felt that death might not be a particularly terrible thing. There should be more important things waiting for him to do. That is, no matter what terrible ritual Wormtail was going to do next, he must do his best to stop it, regardless of everything. So, Harry began to struggle hard. He had to escape from this place first, and then he could resist the enemy. But Harry did a lot, but it didn't work. His body was completely unable to exert any strength at this moment. He had just been hit by Wormtail's magic, and his arm was still bleeding, as if Wormtail had just taken away all the blood from Harry's body, turning Harry into a lifeless corpse. At this moment, Wormtail didn't care about Harry at all. He had more important things to do. He started to throw a lot of herbs into the pot. The pot was obviously very big, but it felt like it couldn't hold any more. Wormtail's cooking skills were good. He could even cook the smell of fresh meat soup in the pot, which made people drool. Of course, if others knew what was cooked in it, they would definitely not have this feeling. What was cooked in the pot was Voldemort. Hurry up, Wormtail, Voldemort ordered in the pot. If Wormtail moved slower, he would really be cooked. Yes, my master. Wormtail did not dare to neglect it. He immediately used magic to dig up the grave next to him and found a bone belonging to Voldemort's father. Finally, Wormtail took the sharp knife and cut off his hand. In this way, a pot of delicious bone and fresh meat soup was cooked. Wormtail did not need to do anything else. Voldemort could complete the remaining steps by himself. In fact, Miss Hermione was not idle at this time. She hid aside, thinking about whether to add some other seasonings to Voldemort's bone soup, such as frogs, cat claws, dog claws, eggs, etc. Maybe Voldemort could eventually merge into a salted egg Superman. To be honest, this impulse to make a spoof was very obvious, and it was almost reaching the impulse of having to do it, but Hermione gave up in the end, because the system did not prompt that there was a task option in this regard, so she should suppress her wild imagination first. Miss Hermione began to learn humbly. Although Voldemort's bone and fresh meat soup, she would definitely not try it, but she could use it on others. For example, if one day Harry Potter also becomes like Voldemort, can Hermione use this one-pot stew method to successfully restore Harry? Many skills are better than nothing. When it is time to study, you must not play around. Fortunately, Hermione has a good gene for studying well since she was a child. She is studying hard, and she knows that a good memory is not as good as a bad pen. While studying with her head, she also took out a pen and paper to take notes. Very serious. Finally, during the process of boiling over a high fire and finally collecting the juice, a bright light burst out from the cauldron, and as the smoke rose, Voldemort's pale body was successfully resurrected and emerged from the disaster. At that moment, the whole sky was covered with dark clouds, lightning and thunder. Voldemort's powerful ability can already affect climate change. This is very unusual. Harry Potter's face was pale, and Voldemort was resurrected. Right under his gaze. Is the end of the wizarding world coming? Voldemort's body is extremely ugly, just like the monster in Alien. If he is brought to the movie event of Alien as a monster at this time, there will definitely be no sense of disobedience. Voldemort did not go to trouble Harry at first. Maybe he is also a villain with obsessive-compulsive disorder and wants to save the delicious things for the last. He asked Wormtail to return his wand. It turned out that the wand Wormtail just used was Voldemort's, and asked him to stretch out his arm. Wormtail was very excited. He knew that Voldemort's power was boundless. Just now, Wormtail lost one of his hands in order to revive Voldemort. At this time, Lord Voldemort wanted to return one of his hands. Wormtail knew that Lord Voldemort could definitely do it. However, when Wormtail wishfully stretched out his broken arm, Voldemort said indifferently, "It's the other arm." Wormtail was stunned. For a moment, he didn't know how to continue speaking. He simply stretched out his other arm without saying a word. Voldemort has been resurrected successfully, and he should not want Wormtail's arm anymore. Voldemort took out his wand and released it on the demon mark on Wormtail's wrist. Every Death Eater has a demon mark tattoo on his body, which is something that must be done after becoming a Death Eater. This mark represents Voldemort and contains Voldemort's spiritual power. After resurrecting at this moment, Voldemort used magic to let the Death Eaters who also had the demon mark know him. For a moment, from the sky of the world covered by dark clouds, several rotating thick clouds appeared at the same time, like a tornado visible to the naked eye. When they fell, it turned out to be a dozen Death Eaters. They were all wearing the same black robes, and the black mist covered their faces, making it difficult to see their appearance. But they were respectful when they surrounded Voldemort, not daring to be careless. When Voldemort saw them, he began to roar loudly, "What have you done during the years I was asleep? Master, we have been looking for you all the time. Now that you have appeared again, we are so happy." The voice of the Death Eater who spoke was very familiar. He was Malfoy's father Lucius. He glanced at the big pot beside him and saw the smell of bone and meat broth, but he understood that when Voldemort came back to the world, he summoned them first and foremost, and it was definitely not for hot pot. Chapter 448 Harry Potter, you are amazing. Lucius was obviously eager to show off, fearing that Voldemort would treat him as a traitor and directly deal with him, especially when he was just summoned by Voldemort. He saw Cedric Diggory, whose body was already cold, lying on the ground. The Triwizard Tournament was the hottest topic in the wizarding world recently. As one of the 4 warrior contestants, Cedric was of course known to most people. Moreover, Harry Potter, who was imprisoned on the statue of the Grim Reaper with a bleeding arm and a pale face, was also very eye-catching. Lucius didn't want to have such an end, so he naturally had to speak up and express his loyalty. "Humphrey, you haven't changed at all. If I hadn't taken the initiative to summon you, would any of you have taken the initiative to find me?" Voldemort was of course very familiar with what kind of people they were. This time, Voldemort was able to resurrect, and Wormtail helped a lot. He even sacrificed one of his hands, so when the summoned Death Eaters were collectively silent, Wormtail hurried to take credit. Master, I am absolutely loyal to you." Voldemort seemed to have a pair of eyes that could see through people's hearts, and said mercilessly, "Wormtail, you serve me like this because you are afraid of me. You are afraid that I will kill you." Wormtail was speechless. He was more afraid of death than Miss Hermione Granger, but Hermione had higher requirements for the quality of life. If the living environment was too poor, she would not be able to survive. But Wormtail was different. In order to survive, he became a pet mouse and lived in the Weasley family for many years. This was unimaginable for ordinary people, and at this moment, Wormtail was also unkempt, looking not much different from a dirty and ugly humanoid mouse. "I am very disappointed in you all." Voldemort was resurrected and reprimanded the summoned Death Eaters, so that no one dared to refute them. Voldemort was very satisfied. Even though he had not made trouble for more than 10 years, his reputation remained. Now is the time to use troops. It is not convenient to kill his subordinates directly. When he returns to the Peak, all those who have betrayed or displeased Voldemort will be killed. Wormtail, stretch out your hand. This time, Wormtail showed a joyful expression on his face, as if he was facing a gift from God. Voldemort waved his wand, and with the dazzling light, a new hand immediately grew out of Wormtail's broken wrist. But it was like mercury, not a human hand. Wormtail moved his new palm, and he was very satisfied with his low demands on life. "Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master." Voldemort no longer paid attention to this poor guy. It was finally time to have a big meal, and Voldemort went straight to Harry Potter. This poor boy was still hanging on the statue of the God of Death. Voldemort's already ugly face began to become extremely arrogant. Facing this destined enemy, Voldemort could not hold back his emotions at all. "Harry Potter." Voldemort called Harry's name in a hoarse voice, and Voldemort's lips seemed to kiss Harry's face. However, Harry did not show any fear, because anger had occupied his entire brain. Voldemort was the enemy who killed Harry's father and mother. It was this demon who made Harry an orphan since childhood and lived a life of dependence on others during his childhood. "You made me look like this." Voldemort stretched out his wrinkled finger and tapped Harry Potter's forehead, saying in an arrogant manner, "I couldn't touch you before, Harry, but now I can't." "Harry Potter, the love spell left by your mother on you can no longer cause fatal harm to me." Voldemort began to explain why Harry hurt him. It was not because of how powerful Harry Potter was, but because of a love protection spell released by Harry's mother when she was dying. This spell hurt Voldemort. Harry did not speak from beginning to end, with only hatred in his eyes. "You are noble, you are amazing." Voldemort said Harry was worthless, with the purpose of letting all the Death Eaters present understand that Harry Potter was not a myth, and he was not the nemesis of the great Voldemort. Now that Voldemort has been resurrected, there is still Harry Potter's blood flowing in his body, so Harry's mother's spell is completely ineffective against Voldemort. Miss Hermione Granger had no interest in participating, and quietly watched Voldemort's personal show and stealth. The talent show began, and Voldemort did not kill Harry directly. He felt that he had already won and everything was under control. Because of Harry Potter, Voldemort had been dead for more than 10 years. In order to survive, he possessed other people's heads and sucked the blood of unicorns, trying to revive himself through the Philosopher's Stone and trying to revive himself through the old diary. But all failed. Most of the reasons were because of Harry Potter in front of him. If Harry Potter was killed directly at this moment, it would be difficult to eliminate the hatred in his heart. Voldemort grabbed Harry Potter, raised him above his head, and threw him directly to the ground, kicking the wand that was originally knocked down by Wormtail. "Harry, pick it up, let's duel. I will kill you in the duel." Openly and squarely. Harry was still in a daze. Wormtail was already a little anxious. He really wanted to tell Lord Voldemort, "Don't waste time, why not just kill Harry Potter?" He was one of the murderers who killed Harry Potter's parents. Harry Potter would definitely not let him go. Only if Harry was killed by Voldemort immediately, Wormtail could feel at ease. But Voldemort was in a very high mood at the moment. Wormtail didn't dare to speak to disturb Voldemort's interest. Wormtail was timid. "Harry Potter, stand up!" Voldemort roared again, shaking Harry's eardrums. Harry was not timid. This was an opportunity. He should not give up. He picked up his wand, and Voldemort attached great importance to the ritual before the duel. "Bow before the duel. Harry, bow to me." Voldemort waved his wand directly. His magic energy was very huge, and the speed was fast, forcing Harry to bow to him. At this moment, Voldemort was in command. "Get ready, begin. Avatar is here." Voldemort used the killing curse right away. It was obvious that Voldemort really wanted to kill Harry. Even when Harry Potter was facing his enemy Voldemort, he did not use the unforgivable curse, but a very conventional disarming curse. Different spells, the magical energy that burst out should not be underestimated. Two dazzling magic attacks met in midair, and for a moment, sparks and lightning flashed, and the entire space was filled with extremely gorgeous magical energy. The Death Eaters who were watching on the side knew that this was the best time to show their loyalty, but as soon as they took out their wands, they were stopped by Voldemort. "Don't do it, Harry Potter. I want to kill him with my own hands." "If you don't kill Harry with your own hands, it's hard to get rid of the hatred in your heart." The Death Eaters shrouded in black robes and black fog looked at each other at this moment, but no one dared to make a move again. Harry was already very awesome to be able to resist Voldemort's killing spell. However, the power gap between the two was still visibly huge. Voldemort's magic light was approaching Harry little by little, and it seemed that Harry was about to be killed. Chapter 449 Hermione. At the critical moment, the system options finally appeared in front of Ms. Hermione Granger, who had been watching the battle. Option 1. Watching Harry being killed by Voldemort. The story of Harry Potter can end here. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, Fast Forward, +1. Option 2. Harry can still be rescued, and the action must be done secretly, so that Voldemort will think that Harry Potter was lucky to escape. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Option 3. Directly defeat Voldemort and take Voldemort as a younger brother, and from then on become the biggest devil in the wizarding world. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, Big Villain, +1. 3 very conventional task options. In Miss Hermione's opinion, it's too conventional, because according to Miss Hermione's imagination, it should be added to the dance on the spot, so that Voldemort can't help but join the dance and shake his head. There is no need to think too much about these 3 task options. The answer is obvious. Flashback spell. This is a spell phenomenon that only occurs under extremely special circumstances. When 2 wands of the same origin attack each other, a strange phenomenon will occur. At this moment, Voldemort and Harry have such an opportunity, because the cores of the wands in their hands are made from the same phoenix feather. However, Harry's magic level is still too low, and he has not been successfully stimulated in the duel with Voldemort. What Hermione has to do is to quietly improve this part of Harry's deficiency. As Miss Hermione's power quietly entered Harry's body, at that moment, Harry's magic was once again tied with Voldemort. Voldemort was wondering, where did this brat get such a strong power? Then, the flashback spell was officially activated. For a moment, the soul of the dead Cedric Diggory, including the souls of Harry's father and mother, appeared at the same time. More incredible expressions suddenly appeared on Voldemort's ugly old face. Because of the nature of the flashback spell, at this moment, not only Harry Potter could see this incredible spectacle, even Voldemort was the same. When the souls of Harry's parents reached out to Harry's shoulders at the same time, Harry Potter felt it. That was the power of love. This is impossible. Harry Potter's small universe exploded, and the terrifying magic power actually overwhelmed Voldemort. This was something that would never happen, but it really happened at this moment. Voldemort retreated step by step until he could no longer retreat. Harry also woke up. He knew that Voldemort had many people and he had to escape from here as soon as possible to have a chance to survive. Otherwise he would be like Cedric Diggory. So when he barely repelled Voldemort, he immediately ran to the place where the trophy was. At this time, Cedric Diggory's soul seemed to say to Harry, "Take my body back, I don't want to stay here." Although this move would increase the difficulty of Harry's escape, Harry did not refuse. He dragged Cedric Diggory's body and quickly came to the trophy. The time-space shuttle magic on the trophy was supposed to be a one-time thing. That is, you can bring Harry and Cedric Diggory to this place. After the task is completed, the trophy will return to normal. However, Miss Hermione, who was just there to watch the show, was not just there to watch the fun. She had taken care of all these small details. When Harry brought Cedric Diggory's body and touched the trophy, he traveled back more smoothly than when he came here. The magic on the trophy had been tampered with by Hermione. Voldemort and his many Death Eaters looked at each other at this moment, especially Voldemort, whose anger almost made his head grow bigger. Such a serious mistake made Voldemort's men silent, and no one dared to stand up and comment. The whole scene was extremely embarrassing. Miss Hermione Granger, who was just there to watch the show, did not rush to leave. She had been hiding and watching the show for so long, and Voldemort had not discovered her. Hermione's ability had long been above Voldemort's, so Hermione had no need to be afraid of him at all. Even at this moment, Hermione wanted to set off some firecrackers and fireworks to stimulate Voldemort, but after thinking about it, she decided not to expose herself because of a momentary pleasure. Because of the uniqueness of Miss Hermione's system rewards, her approach to villains will naturally change. It's true that she is the savior, but her rewards and promotions are the choices of each task. Therefore, Voldemort, Harry, etc. are actually the leaks raised by Hermione. Only when they continue to live can new options continue to appear. Of course, if it really comes to the time when Voldemort should die, Hermione will not be merciful. The problem is that even if Voldemort is killed now, it will be useless unless all his Horcruxes are destroyed. This is not a small matter, and Harry Potter and Ron need to participate together and take it slowly. Hermione, who is just plain soy sauce, is like this. When others don't notice her, she comes. When others don't notice her either, she leaves again. She has her own door key, and it's easy to leave this place, leaving behind the hysterical Voldemort. It's not that Hermione can't kill Voldemort, but there is no need. In the Hogwarts maze, when Harry Potter came back with the trophy, everyone saw Cedric Diggory's body before they could cheer. At that moment, the whole audience was in an uproar. People first thought that there was an accident, or that Cedric Diggory was killed by Harry Potter. And Harry, who survived the disaster, explained loudly, "Voldemort, Voldemort, he is back." It was Voldemort who killed Cedric Diggory. This time the whole audience was boiling again. That terrible name, the demon that no one dared to mention. He actually came back, and killed Cedric Diggory. No one questioned Harry's words. Harry looked at Cedric Diggory's cold body, and he was filled with grief. He cried and explained, "The trophy? The trophy is a portkey. It takes us to Voldemort." Conspiracy. A big conspiracy. The poor Hogwarts organizers didn't understand it until the end. Dumbledore's face was gloomy and thoughtful, but he still hugged Harry as an elder, comforted Harry, and said to him, "You have suffered, Harry, go down and rest." Harry nodded. He has won many honors since he entered Hogwarts, but there is no doubt that this trophy did not make him feel any happiness or joy. Not only did Cedric Diggory die, he also saw Voldemort resurrect from the cauldron. The sworn enemy. Ron was one of Harry's few friends, and he wanted to care about Harry at this moment, but he happened to see the beautiful classmate Hermione Granger. "Hermione, where did you go just now?" "Hermione just went to Voldemort's place to hang out." "I have been watching the game in the audience." Hermione pretended not to know. "What happened to Harry? Why does he look so bad?" Ron was surprised. "Hermione, do you really know nothing?" Hermione shook her head. Ron sighed. "Cedric Diggory is dead, and Voldemort killed him." "God, this information will take me a long time to digest." Chapter 450, Goblet of Fire. The truth revealed. Voldemort, the existence that not many wizards in the wizarding world do not fear. Even Miss Hermione Granger, in the first few years after she came to Hogwarts, was most afraid of Voldemort. So, although Hermione is now arrogant, she can still understand those ordinary wizards. Because of the appearance of Miss Hermione, Ron did not go to Harry immediately. As for Harry, he was quickly taken away by Mad-Eye Moody. In this Triwizard Tournament, Mad-Eye Moody helped Harry a lot. Although Harry had some doubts about the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts, he did not completely reject him. "Come with me, Harry, I have a lot to ask you." Harry did not question too much and just followed. Mad-Eye Moody hugged Harry's shoulders and almost dragged Harry. It can be seen that Mad-Eye Moody has been suppressing his nervous and expectant emotions. And there are also some hidden emotions. Mad-Eye Moody was afraid that Harry would run away, so he took him to his office, closed the door, and locked it. Harry looked at Mad-Eye Moody's strange behavior curiously. Mad-Eye Moody didn't know that Hermione quickly left Ron behind and came here in stealth. Seeing the locked door, she felt that it would be inconvenient for Dumbledore and others to break in later, so she used magic to quietly open the locked door when Mad-Eye Moody and Harry didn't notice. Of course, the door was still closed, but it was not locked again. Hermione thought that the system would release optional tasks, but it didn't. It doesn't matter. Without tasks, Hermione is not bad to watch the show quietly. After all, it's the finale of the movie, and the mystery of the Goblet of Fire will soon be revealed. Harry, did you see him? Mad-Eye Moody seemed to be unable to control his crazy emotions. Who? Harry noticed the weirdness of Mad-Eye Moody, but Mad-Eye Moody couldn't wait any longer, and he didn't want to pretend anymore. Voldemort, the greatest dark wizard in the wizarding world. Mad-Eye Moody's address was also problematic. Harry still answered, I saw it. Great. Did he successfully resurrect in the graveyard? Mad-Eye Moody had almost exposed himself. After nearly a year of disguise, he finally completed the task. Mad-Eye Moody's excitement was almost overflowing. Harry had long noticed that Mad-Eye Moody was not in a good mood. At this moment, Harry doubted. I didn't mention the graveyard, Professor Moody. How did you know about the graveyard? Mad-Eye Moody was talking nonsense at this time, and maybe he could continue to prevaricate, but he really didn't want to hide anymore. In this secret room, in Mad-Eye Moody's view, there were only him and Harry. In fact, there was also Miss Hermione Granger, who was invisible and had no mission and could only watch the show. He no longer disguised himself. He said with a grim face, Harry Potter, who do you think you are? You are just one of the ingredients for resurrecting the great Lord Voldemort. Without me, you are nothing in the Triwizard Tournament. Professor. Harry was stunned. Although he noticed that Mad-Eye Moody was not right, he didn't expect that he would directly tear his face and expose himself completely. Since Lord Voldemort has been successfully resurrected, I don't have to keep pretending. Mad-Eye Moody reached out and took off the fake eyeballs on his eyes. This broken thing, I have wanted to take it off for a long time. It turned out that Mad-Eye Moody's eyes were intact, and he pretended that he had a bad eye. Harry began to retreat and wanted to take out his wand to fight back, but Mad-Eye Moody's wand was already pointed at Harry's chin. As long as Mad-Eye Moody recited the unforgivable curse, Harry would die immediately. Harry never dreamed that he had just escaped from the wolf's den and fell into the tiger's mouth. It was simply impossible to defend himself. Mad-Eye Moody was not in a hurry to kill Harry. He learned the bad habit of the villain's love of nagging from Voldemort. Harry Potter, have you ever thought that if I hadn't suggested it, would that idiot Hagrid have taken you to the woods to see the dragon? If I hadn't told that idiot Cedric Diggory to open the golden egg in the water, would you have known this method? If I hadn't given that idiot Longbottom the book and told you to use the fish gilly grass, would you have breathed at the bottom of the lake? Brain. Harry. Mad-Eye Moody finally told all the secrets of everything he had done this year, and he felt really happy. Idiot. 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 This is what Mad-Eye Moody said about those people. Harry's heart was cold. He didn't expect that Mad-Eye Moody's big hand was behind all the way to the Triwizard Tournament. You threw my name into the Goblet of Fire? Harry learned to draw inferences from one example. Mad-Eye Moody sneered with a look of confidence. The last Voldemort with such an expression was probably still in the graveyard, furious. Do you think your name would appear in the Goblet of Fire for no reason? Mad-Eye Moody indirectly admitted, think about how the great Lord Voldemort will praise me because I killed Harry Potter. As one of the villains, Mad-Eye Moody was still nagging. Miss Hermione Granger, who was watching the show, directly judged him as an unqualified villain. The reason why Mad-Eye Moody was rated as a villain was that he did a lot of things secretly in Hogwarts, including the teleportation magic on the trophy. It was also done by Mad-Eye Moody. It is no exaggeration to say that if Hermione did not know the plot, this Mad-Eye Moody, relying on his own strength, played the entire Triwizard tournament in his hands, which was still very impressive. It was just that he made the most wrong mistake that a qualified villain should not make. He was nagging at the last minute, which led to a missed opportunity. But even if Moody was ruthless, decisive, and not nagging, Hermione would not give him a chance. Bang! As expected, at the last moment, Headmaster Dumbledore and Professor Snape arrived. After investigating the trophy, the two finally suspected that the person who was most likely to have tampered with it was Mad-Eye Moody. Then, when they asked, they found out that Harry Potter was taken away by Mad-Eye Moody. Oh no! The two hurried over. Fortunately, Mad-Eye Moody was very long-winded, otherwise Harry Potter's body might have been cold by now. Disarming spell. Professor Snape was quick-witted and picked up the wand and attacked Mad-Eye Moody. Mad-Eye Moody really didn't understand. He had just locked the door. Even if he used magic to open the door, there should be movement. How could he break in by pushing the door? Could it be that he was too excited just now and forgot it? At this time was tight and there was no time to think. Mad-Eye Moody wanted to fight back, but the wand in his hand had been knocked away, and at the same time, Mad-Eye Moody was directly controlled by Professor Snape. Headmaster Dumbledore immediately went to check on Harry and said with concern, "Child, are you okay?" Harry shook his head. "I'm fine, Headmaster." Moody. Dumbledore interrupted Harry's words. It would be more convenient to interrogate Mad-Eye Moody directly on the spot than to listen to Harry Potter. "You are not the real Mad-Eye Moody. Who are you?" Dumbledore was very stern when he questioned Mad-Eye Moody. The fight just now touched the box on the side. Harry came in and saw the unique box several times. He always thought it was Mad-Eye Moody's luggage, but at this moment, the strange box suddenly moved by itself. "Be honest, don't move." Professor Snape immediately stopped Mad-Eye Moody, who wanted to resist. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.